thanks for that Prime Gaming sub. We see you. Hey you, thanks for the Prime Gaming sub, and welcome back to SMITE Masters. We've just seen Hex Mambo take down the Wargs and send them home. Now they're looking to do the same thing to the Kaolin Wardens, who are also up for elimination here in this final set of today. BlazyBot here, back on the desk, joined this time by Ro. What's up, Ro?
Not a lot, honestly. I just casted a relatively long first game and then a relatively short second game. So Mambo kind of showing they can play both styles, you know. Then again, they're always kind of scaling. They're always going to be stronger in late game. You know, Kaolin Wardens on the opposite side, always stronger in the early game. SMITE calling these objectives. I feel like we're in for, you know, I don't know, don't want to bring it back to David versus Goliath, but that's what maybe it'll be. Potentially.
I mean, both of these teams have shown, as you touched on there, that they can play both of these styles now. Right. And I for one, am really interested to see how their picks and bans are going to reflect that. But first off, guys, I'd like to give a shout out to our friends over at Prime Gaming. And thank you at home for your Prime Gaming sub. Obviously, these are our title sponsors for the SPL this year. And you already saw in that little video there the kind of games that you can pick up for 100% free when you pick up that Amazon Prime subscription. But make sure that you're getting the most out of your membership with all the other exclusive Prime Gaming content that it has to offer. And if you're not a Prime Gamer yet, why not? You should do it. It's great. It's a great experience. You get a little crown in Twitch chat too. You get a little icon. So many rewards. Good stuff.
All right, so let's say Sino is our champion this game, right?
Okay.
He's going to pick Nemesis or Mercury, and he's going to run it down on these objectives. How are Mambo going to handle it?
How are Mambo going to handle it if Mambo is the general?
Well, I don't know. They're just a slower early game team, and they have to respond to some early objectives.
I think they are going to handle it in a way that will help them win and advance into this fourth group here. As we've mentioned, this is going to be the second elimination game of today. One of these two teams will be heading home. The other one will be heading through to tomorrow. In tomorrow's games, where they will be facing off against the Valhalla Valkyries and the Solar Scarabs. Two teams that are obviously SPL caliber because they are in the SPL.
Yes. Look, and this is a best of three, so now it's time for NA versus EU. Once again, we've seen it plenty this week, and so far, we've got one NA team, and that's it, right?
Yeah, we've got
through to tomorrow.
Yeah, we've got the
and then one EU team left and one NA team left, and now decides whether or not a European team will make it back to the big stage versus the SPL teams. Now, granted, this Hex Mambo team, they've kind of already been to that big stage. They were most of Valkyries last year, and they've used to playing on this higher ping. That being said, Kaolin Warden's not in the office today either. You know, they might be playing from anywhere else in America, so maybe ping a little bit of an issue for them too. But I doubt as much as Hex Mambo. But Kaolin Wardens being able to watch that last set, they've had time to prepare. They can warm up in ranked as well, so they're not necessarily cold in terms of them playing the game. Maybe they can bring an extra strategy into Mambo today.
Potentially, yeah, absolutely. And, these two teams have already pulled out some very unique picks for themselves.
Sino especially.
Yeah, Sino especially. Last game pulling out the Skadi jungle.
And Arachne,
And Arachne, yeah. Well, the Arachne...
Not so special.
Not so special. I think that the Skadi definitely is a talking point. Deathwalker as well, playing some interesting stuff in the Hades. We saw Mogao play that a little bit earlier on this week as well. So I guess my question to you is, Ro, are we expecting some similar picks? Are we expecting maybe the Skadi jungle run back, or was that just for the best of one?
Look, I don't think it's a best of one cheesy pick because I've seen him practice it a fair bit, but maybe we'll be proven wrong this game. I think Mambo will kind of stick with what they've been doing because they've had no time between the last set. That's part of the problem well, not the problem in this bracket. It's just the punishment for, underperforming and losing earlier. Now they have to face this gauntlet that is the Wardens.
And as we go into picks and bans, obviously that first pick going to Hex Mambo, the first, the highest seeded team here out of these two. And they're going to ban away the Amaterasu Now, this isn't something that we've been seeing Mambo ban out, like, in general. This is definitely a specified ban against the Wardens.
Yes, yes. Relentless One been playing this Amaterasu to a very high level, and it perfectly encapsulates what they want to do as a team. You know, it has that objective DPS. It will rotate out of lane very quickly with that movement speed and get to these objectives. And in the same vein, they're banning away the Mercury because, again, it has that objective DPS. They've recognized Warden's playstyle, and they want to take it away from them. And then on the opposite side, we're seeing the exact same thing. And that's what we see in these longer days, these longer tournaments. You know, Wardens are studying Mambo as they play, Mambo are studying Wardens as they play, and they both ban away each other's playstyle. That's Sino's Mercury, that's Sino's Nemesis, and that's Relentless One's Amaterasu. Those are all specific bans for this specific team. Just like on the other side, Wardens banning away the Geb from Deathwalker, the Humbats away from Johnny, and the Loki away from Johnny as well. Now, all of a sudden, these are all target bans, and we've got some top picks open. Top picks open, like Jingwei is open, Baron is open, Yamoja is open, and things like that.
For sure, and I would be very surprised to see Mambo not go for that Jingwei here in that first slot. This is something that they've been prioritizing a lot so far this weekend. Potentially, though, looking for that Baron as well. We know that Deathwalker likes the Baron, but
Yes.
We haven't seen him pull him out so far this week, so maybe an interesting first attempt at Deathwalking.
Baba Yaga.
And it's Baba Yaga. You know, I think the delay there in that first pick, there's so many top gods open. You know, to be honest, there's so many that Wardens can't take all of them in the top 2. So let's take our next preference. We don't mind which one of those top gods we get. We'll just take our next preference, which is the Baba Yaga, which has worked out great for Zero so far. And we're still guaranteed a top pick like Baron or Jingwei or Yamoja in that, you know, next 2 picks.
But yeah, well, I mean, you saw on the screen there, Ro, it's picked up 7 times so far with a 71% win rate, and most of that has been Zeros.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of damage from Zeros as well.
Absolutely.
I believe, dropping 49k one time, and that was in a slower game as well, where it's just all late game team fights. But when he gets that artillery damage running, and he can get that artillery damage and drop it on a Yamoja, I don't think she's going to mind too much, but that is one of those top 3 picks that I mentioned taken away from them.
But this Yamoja is a character that works against this this Baba Yaga really, really well.
Quite
you know, those walls can really block off when you're in the ultimate, really interrupt your flow, stop you from chasing down people, and other things that are hard to chase down. This Jingwei, this is going to round out the duo lane, most likely, for the Wardens, unless they want to pull out some super spicy stuff and put this Yamoja into some flex position with the Jingwei. Alternatively, this Hades is probably going to be going back to the Deathwalker, though. I don't know why I keep calling him the Deathwalker. It just seems like such an easy prefix there.
Despite he's played it so much, it is a pick that actually surprised me when the Baron is open and he's decided to go for the Hades instead. That just might be a long day type thing. He's warmed up on the Hades. He's had a lot of success on it so far, but I'm surprised to see him value it over the Baron this time. So now the Baron's still open if the Wardens want it. I'm not sure if we've seen Relentless pick it up. It doesn't seem to be his playstyle. He tries to go for the more aggressive picks and rotate earlier, but you know, he can still do that with other picks against the Hades.
For sure, yeah, no, I got to agree with you as the Apwash here locked in. Now, this obviously a really interesting pick. We've been talking about Apwash way too many times over the last week. He's been picked up only 3 times, apparently, but it feels like so many more, probably because of the length of the games he's been a part of.
I would imagine, and I'm not 100% sure of this, but I'm pretty sure they've all been from Moswell as well. So it's just the him god. He's had it, and he won Worlds with this god. You know, he's picking it for a reason. We're leaving the Sino picks until late, but we can only imagine it's going to be one of those higher DPS gods so he can call these objectives, so these corpses can blow up the Fire Giant, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And into our second round of bans, we're going to see some similar stuff from the first time around. These are mainly some targeted picks. The Kumbhakana doesn't want to be even thought about by the Wardens here. The Daji, something that's been banned out pretty consistently so far this week as well. The Kali as well from Mambo. The only standout ban here really is that Awilix, which we have not seen at all so far.
It's just a sign of respect ban. He's played it for a long time. It can pull the Hades out. They already have a knock-up from Yamoja and Jingwei, so you know it makes sense for this game. We don't see it too often, but it does have the tools that Sino would utilize, and it would be a good pick against the Mambo team comp. But you know, we're talking about objective DPS. There is a lot of junglers with objective DPS. Osiris being one of them. He's going to get the stone cutting sword. He always builds that executioner before he pulls those objectives. But now he might have to contest with a lot of auto attack anti-auto attack gods in the Xingqian that can reduce your auto attack damage, the Chuck that can reduce your auto attack speed. You know, they identifying what the Warden's win conditions are and countering them to the best of their ability.
I don't know 100% about this Chuck cover here, and it looks like both of them are going to get noped out of real quick. Was not imagining that Chuck was going to do anything productive unless they wanted to move it over towards the support role for some reason, or maybe the Hades over to support. This time, hovering some characters that make a little bit more sense. This Fafnir, very, very good at, you know, anything involving any sort of auto attackers, and Rama and even potentially this Fenrir, you know, not necessarily an auto attack god, but definitely uses those auto attacks to good effect.
I think one good thing is that he can follow Jingwei, he can follow Yamoja, and he can stick on this Alposh, he can get away from this Osiris, so a very mobile god in the Fenrir. And we're talking about anti-auto attack as well. This Fafnir has anti-auto attack in regards to like a disarm. If he can disarm this Osiris, that's enough peel for a Rama or a Baba Yaga to get away. I am surprised to see this Osiris pick into the Baba Yaga. We've seen Zeros pick that as an Osiris counter already, so for him to have the Baba Yaga first and then get to play into an Osiris pick later on, it's a bonus for him. And we're going back to the hover of Xingqian, so they're still thinking about this anti-auto attack. I like it. It is a slower pick, but that's Mambo's style. It can be an annoying pick, and that's Trix Tank style, like you've said before. So, you know, Fafnir wouldn't have been too bad. Xingqian, maybe even better. It's certainly a preference for them.
For sure, and I think Jingqian in this meta, we've already discussed just a truly absurd amount of times how good ADCs are right now. And in that kind of a situation, what is better than a character that can just make your auto attacks do half the amount of damage that they should normally?
Yeah, the hard part is there's some certain like interactions with the Xingqian ultimate that really come into play at high levels of these tournaments, right? So if a Yamoja is in that Riptide in the middle of the air, I don't think Xingqian can actually throw her out, or any of the characters that's knocked up for that matter, out. And Jingwei can also jump out and of that big throw. So it's really only the Alposh that he can throw, and then he's on to just reducing that auto attack damage of the Osiris and the Skadi.
Well, speaking of the Skadi, we hadn't touched on that just yet, but of course, this is 9 out of 10 times this is going to Sino in that jungle role. It worked out for him in the best of 1 set, so no surprise to see him try here, where this is the first game. You know, it's Mifflin always likes to say it's the most important game of this best of 3 situation. It's also kind of a scouting game, right?
Yeah.
Wardens want to poke around, see what they can get away with, see if they can break this defense with some of the shenanigans that they've got on the board. But all in all, Ro, I was coming into this thinking we would see some extra spicy picks. Considering, you know, Sino excluded, we'll forget about Sino. Apart from that, this is pretty standard for these two.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some intelligent bans out of Wardens to force Trix Tank away from his more traditional picks, and he's gotten down, I wouldn't say down to a Xingqian, but he's gone across to a Xingqian. So something that I don't think he has played yet, but is going to be very effective into this Skadi and Osiris. I am surprised to see the Osiris go away from the jungle and into the solo lane, but I know Relentless One plays it, and it will still do a similar job to what the Amaterasu does, and there's a reason they banned it away from Mambo, and that's there's a reason Mambo banned it away, because bringing that objective DPS in terms of the Shoguns to the rest of the team, especially a double Hunter team at that, they're going to burn through those objectives as soon as Sino's calling them.
And also, it makes sense into this Hades, right? You hit that Lord of the Afterlife, suddenly one of Hades' biggest annoyance points in that solo lane, that ability to just hit a whole wave and suddenly be full HP, is suddenly off the table. Maybe that gives Relentless One some potential to get a little bit more aggression here onto the Hades.
Yeah, again, similar to the Amaterasu, you know, he's just going to be auto-attacking the waves and clearing out while he can, you know. So if he can auto-attack, clear, and rotate, then maybe he can have an impact before this Hades comes online.
Well, it's going to be all down to this game number 1. Well, I say all down. There's still a little bit of time to play with for these two teams, and time may certainly be the operative word. Mambo's obviously like to take these to a later game, but we did just see them go for a slightly shorter style, so I'm very interested to see what this kind of team comp is going to entail for them. Ro, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Trelly in the Betterly Word format this time around. Looking solely at the picks and bans, are you feeling any of these two teams won the draft?
Look, I would say Wardens probably have the Betterly team comp here, and I think they could win probably if they can get a Fire Giant pre-20 minutes like we've seen them do against other, I don't remember, I think it was the Ravens they did that against, and then they can get a second Fire Giant around like 25 minutes, then they can run over Mambo before they get to their late game team fights.
Will they be able to do that run over, or will the Hex Mambo be able to make it all the way to the end of the game and win this one out? It's over to the casters.
Well, a late game is what these two teams might want to go to, but it's certainly going to be a late day for Hex Mambo if they continue that same trend. Game number 1 between these two teams. It's J-Mac and it's Mifflin joining me. And a bit of a different look for Johnny specifically on this squad. Haven't seen the Fenrir in quite some time for him.
It's been a while, but it still certainly fits his style of play, doesn't it? You can go the ability-focused Fenrir. I doubt we see that, especially considering how strong some of these auto-attack items are in 9-5. I am surprised to see Mace in the first slot. Kind of imagine it's just going to be the Jotun, so he has that Ragnarok available a little bit more often. Then keep your eye on the build. Maybe a Serrated Edge in the second slot, potentially even a Stone-Cutting Sword. Johnny, one that really likes to get in there and get his hands quite literally dirty. He wants to claw at him.
I think one of the interesting shakeups that we've seen now with the Osiris that it saw so many priority bans up against with some of the North American teams. The only times that we have seen this Osiris this week has been in that jungle role. But now Relentless One is going to be piling over into the solo lane. Tell me a little bit about the kind of shift up of this build and playstyle with this guy in that role.
Yeah, just the 1,000-fold blade, an interesting start for Osiris, essentially getting 0 sustain in a lane where I'm thinking he's really going to want some sustain. Deathwalker is having essentially infinite mana as long as that blue buff is on him, and by nature of being Hades, infinite mana equates to infinite HP as well. Whereas Relentless One, every single bit of poke that he takes is impactful. Taking a peek at his potions, doesn't even have the Chalice of Healing, so every potion that he uses is lost permanently. Meaning that either Relentless One is relying on an early gank to shut down Deathwalker, or he's just saying, I'm going to play as far back as possible and not take any fights, because any poke applied to this Hades is just going to be removed the second he makes contact with a minion wave.
And I mean, wanting that early pressure for Relentless One here, you're looking at a Scotty jungle. I mean, Miff, to my imagination, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of that early kill pressure with a Scotty Osiris until around maybe that level 5 mark.
Yeah, level 5 Scotty, certainly a lot more easy to apply that gank, but if Deathwalker leaps on a wave, he's still stuck. That dog and the slow from Scotty still going to be very impactful. So it's just whether or not Deathwalker is playing safe enough in this lane. Could be essentially a bait from a Relentless One saying, hey, apply some damage to me. I can't heal it, but if you jump on me, Sino just might be hovering nearby, and he is right now, but it doesn't seem like he's too interested in working his way over towards the solo. Surprised that Deathwalker hasn't taken the bait. He has already removed just about every single potion from Relentless One, so going to be a little bit more difficult now for this Osiris.
You see a little bit of pressure put in the dual lane by Trixtank and E-Chrome. Griff taking about half of his HP and poke from the support of Hex Mambo. Still playing it out a little bit slower in this early. Don't really expect many deaths to come, especially over in this dual lane with all the extra HP that these guys have just naturally walking in towards lane. And then in mid, we've seen just how safe that Zeros has been able to pilot this Baba Yaga specifically. The Baba into the Opwash matchup, it's something that for the longest time we haven't really seen a whole lot of, but now this week we've been definitely seeing much more of these two.
Yeah, but looking at this Opwash, there's not many people he can apply that stun to easily, as Trixtank attempts to steal away the purple buff, and I suppose is just successful in doing so. That is a major fumble by the Kaolin Wardens duo lane, but one purple buff invade makes not for a win. It's what you're able to do with that timer. Now Johnny's got a target to put his aggression on, make sure he's there for that next rotation, and keep this duo lane behind.
We'll have to see what Johnny does elect to go for with this mace that you were bringing up earlier on. Jotun's Wrath, probably the imagination when it goes to there. Not an insane amount of sustain that comes from the side of the Kaolin Wardens to go for maybe a Brawler's Beat Stick. We've really seen so little of Crusher as of the recent matchups there. So
yeah, it got nerfed.
Yeah, it definitely has been hit quite a few times there. You remember? I remember that was the #1 item for every hunter to go towards. Every jungler was popping that, but now we're seeing basically none of it.
Yeah, it just really is not as powerful a stat stick. I mean, everything that it gives you, Crusher that is still good, but any 2 items are probably going to outvalue it, which means we're going to see a whole lot less of Crusher. That's not to say that some gods don't utilize it incredibly well, so we might see it every now and then, but it's very quickly fallen from every single game to, okay, maybe I need a little bit of dot damage to finish off some of these kills. Crusher's a good option.
Well, that 1,000-fold blade does end up turning into a golden blade for Relentless One. So that'll give him a little bit of extra cleave clear
lot.
out there. Yeah, a little, no, definitely a lot more there, especially when he's already got a cleave, and now you throw a cleave on top of a cleave. Cleave squared, the name of the game.
Yeah, I suppose so. So Relentless One now with the Chalice of Healing as well. Won't have to concern himself with the sustain nearly as much. Doesn't have teleport, meaning that Chalice of Healing is essentially his lifeline in the lane. As long as he's got a couple of those charges, he can stick around. Otherwise, he's really going to play generally pretty passive. And I think when you're building Golden Blade in the first slot, you're telling me just by rote, I'm trying to farm, I'm trying to get to that late game phase, which is curious to see considering the Kaolin Warden's composition, I think, really would benefit from early game pressure. How does Golden Blade affect the early game of Relentless One? That is one of the highest movement speed items you can pick up, especially in that Katana tree. Could allow for this Osiris to start rotating out a little bit sooner, but if rotations were his target, if he really wanted to get all the way across the map early on, you'd think teleport would be the selection. Maybe Johnny on this Fenrir, just enough to dissuade him, and maybe scary enough that he's worried about that Ragnarok.
We do have our first ultimate used in the mid lane from Trixtank. Throwing some poke over towards Moswell, gets the beads off the Apwash, and now opens up a target for Johnny. And that's one thing I was going to bring to you now is, where does Johnny make his mark? Right here with the Ragnarok. Misses a couple of bites. Does manage to grab him, pulls him through the tower, but there's not a whole lot of follow-up. Moswell should be just fine eating up some of those corpses to keep his health nice and tanked up there. Kaolin Wardens will keep their mid laner.
So curious. Johnny, had he just dragged Moswell into the jungle, he could have at least applied Brutalize as well, get that damage off, get potentially the kill on his own, but he whiffs 2 bites, tries to drag Moswell through the tower. Here's the thing about towers in 9-5. They're beefy. They hurt. 2 shots drop Johnny to about 40% HP, a little bit of damage from Moswell, does another 20, and this Fenrir is no longer allowed to get involved. That's a major loss of pressure.
Some pressure now by Sino on the left side. Ekrom half HP up in the sky. Trixtank no ult to save him from the 3 that are waiting him on the ground. The updraft is ready to go as soon as Ekrom lands. The beads will not save him. He does get the roll, but a jump in now from Johnny. Dino falling low, down to a quarter HP. Ekrom needs a couple more basics, but the dog is body blocking, but not enough. Ekrom finally able to get first blood for the side of Hex Mambo, but a double stun by Johnny. Gets the airstrike out, but Griff can't get it to in time. It's a double for Ekrom.
Gino on the retreat. Johnny's Unchained should be coming up shortly, but not soon enough. He's going to allow the Emoja to walk away with her life, but Hex Mambo with the turnaround play. Phenomenal peel from Trixtank to apply that Ferocious Roar, buy the time for Ekrom to escape that CC combo. He landed from his own ultimate, Ekrom that is, into a knockup, but it just was not enough time, and the Kaolin Wardens, well, they're so deep on Hex Mambo's side of the map.
Johnny does pick up Moswell, brings him right back out. Zeros does have the cabin, I should say, and that's enough with the help of Johnny to finally get the pick on Moswell. Good timing still. 50 seconds before those beads were to come back up.
Man, Hex Mambo have been sandbagging their early game this entire tournament. They have really expedited their process. And that's not to say that Hex Mambo has a draft that's going to fall off come late game. Deathwalker, sure, maybe not the easiest to apply CC, maybe not the easiest to execute on in the late game on this Hades, but the rest of this draft, Baba Yaga, Jing Shen, Ram with his auto attack stim, all going to be incredibly potent in that 30-minute mark. But Johnny now playing this early game assassin in the jungle with Fenrir, putting so much pressure out there, has made the path to late game much easier and much faster for Hex Mambo.
Walker will try and get himself away from Sino and Relentless. A level 10 Hades, though, should be just fine, especially with some of that physical defense online. But talking about Deathwalker, you know, he actually did put a tweet out on Twitter just before this set, or I think it's before the previous set went up. He said, okay, guys, we got one of 2 ways that Hex Mambo is going to play these ones.
Oh my God.
It's either going to be the I believe you call it the Highland Raven speed run, or the Niflheim Works 12-hour banger. So far, we're getting the speed run as Griff is forced into yet another ultimate, but the snipes out from Ekrom. Not going to be enough. Griff will be just fine.
You know, I like the try from Ekrom there. I think had he actually connected all 3 shots, would have likely found that kill. 3-stack from the Kaolin Wardens. Seemed like maybe Johnny was willing to get involved, but not this time around. Griff's got to play safe in this lane. He's still got beads, but has not got the ultimate, and no HP to play with either. Ekrom not going to allow him to back easily. Keep your eyes on Trix.
Trixtank wrapping around the backside of the tower, waiting for that minion wave to walk through, and maybe doesn't even need it. Knockup comes through from Griff for himself, and that'll peel him away from Trixtank and force the dual lane of Hex Mambo back.
Just really unfortunate timing there for Trixtank, who has his second ability canceled by Griff's knockup and is able to walk his way out of there. I think had Trixtank just waited a couple of seconds, I think even just 1 second for the minion wave to get into that tower, it would have been a little bit easier to apply that damage, would have allowed eChrome to get a little bit closer in as well to follow up on that dash, but instead Griff will maintain his life, and that's exactly what you need from the Kaolin Wardens ADC. He's already playing into a very hard lane considering eChrome got to start this match with 2 kills.
A little bit of a split on the mid camps by Zeros and then the Kaolin Wardens. They trade out the smalls and grab only the large one to the side of the Kaolin Wardens. And looking at the early XP deficits, we see the one between the 2 hunters, eChrome and Griff. And in the solo lane still, even despite no kills happening, no pressure towards any of these buffs, Deathwalker does hold a very small, about half to 1 level XP lead over Relentless.
How often have we seen Johnny in the solo lane? Not once.
Never.
This Fenrir has not made that rotation. Sino, on the other hand, has gone twice over to solo and both times soaks up an entire wave. So that's about the experience difference you can expect between Deathwalker and Relentless One. I think maybe the most interesting experience gap is between these supports. Gino, who has been spending a lot more time in mid, has been playing with his team, trying to farm up the neutrals, has got about a half-level lead, whereas Trixtank spent the last minute and a half trying to shut down Griff and the duo without splitting any of the waves. So Trixtank sacrificing some of his own farm to put the rest of his team ahead has put him slightly behind.
Zeros is going to get a decent bit of value from this Trebuchet. Sure, probably not going to kill the tier 1 tower unless somebody rotates over to help. Gino's not going to be able to crush this one himself. He'll at least take this one to half HP. And
another shot?
No, another one ready. Line up the next one, Trebuchet. Fire another. Just keep that tower going. Moswell back.
Oh my god.
Right in front of it. Griff will lose out on his ultimate on the left side from rotation out of Trix. eChrome wants to take the boxing match under the tower, but he's going to have to roll himself away. He needs all 3 snipes. 2. Third one, not going to be quite enough damage. But Hex Mambo, look at the damage on that tier 1.
Man, had eChrome just landed like one more auto attack, that would have been it. But Griff, very survivable, is able to keep himself alive there. I believe there was some minions in the tower, so Devourer's Gauntlets could have been the difference maker, keeping this Jingwei alive. But it's a very clear strategy from Hex Mambo. Pressure across the board. Take a peek at that tier 1 mid tower, by the way. Trebuchet just does it all. One auto attack is all it's going to take to knock that one down. Moswell, well, he's worse for wear. If that tower goes down, it's going to be so difficult for this already immobile mage to farm up in his own lane just 12 minutes in.
Very aggressive push by the Wardens to try and force out Trixtank. They do get his blink. Johnny goes for the jump up against Relentless. Just misses out, so not going to get the beads from this Osiris because that Lord of the Afterlife is gone thanks to the help of Deathwalker just a few moments ago. But the Hex Mambo, with this 3 kills that they've been able to pick up for themselves, have a very, very small lead. Definitely nothing major at this point of the game. 12 minutes in, less than 1,000 gold, only 1,600 XP.
Yeah, that's about one of the largest leads we've seen at this point in a match so far.
What a thing to say, huh?
Yeah, 9-5. It is much harder to find these advantages. It's much harder to leverage them as well. I think the major difference that is really affecting these SEC teams is how difficult it really is to kill Gold Fury. Gold Fury is just incredibly tanky. I don't have the raw stats. Gormizer's been out this week, so I haven't had the opportunity to ask him, but I believe in 90% of the games that we've watched so far, Pyromancer is the first neutral objective to fall, which is just so different. Gone are the days of Pyromancer's the consolation prize. For the first 15, 20 minutes, Pyromancer might be the only prize.
For real on that. I'm actually thinking about it now, and I can't recall how many pre-15, even pre-20-minute Gold Furies that we've seen without some kind of near team wipe that happens before, and you got to make sure that at least 2 to 3 people are tanky enough to be able to hold on to that, healthy enough at the very least there. So it's been a much slower objective-based play, but maybe that's why we're seeing so many of these auto attackers come through. Double Hunter, these more auto-style warriors as well.
Yeah, and all these auto attackers generally will have sustain for themselves. Johnny with a Seething Howl, eChrome, Devourer's Gauntlets, the same can be said of Griff, decent healing from the Kaolin Wardens. So if either of these teams are allowed to pull an objective, they're certainly capable. They can hold on to them for a pretty decent amount of time. Significant power spikes have been hit, though. Johnny, going down that auto attack tree, will pick up Berserker's Shield in the 2nd slot. Seems to me it might be a hi-rez in the 3rd. And the item that we haven't had the chance to see, but somehow had a conversation about preemptively, Crusher, picked up by Sino. Attack speed, pen, a little bit of power, synergizes well with all the damage over time that you're getting from Calder, as well as some of these poke abilities. Yeah, you'll be able to apply that passive pretty easily.
A pull of the Gold Fury down to half HP. Trixtank in the back line, finds a couple with the ult, but mostly just gets beads over everything else. Johnny leaps into the back line and will not find anybody yet with that bite, waiting for a target, but instead has to walk his way out as Relentless finds 3 with the ult, and a quick retreat now by Hex Mambo as the Kaolin Wardens continue their surge up the left side. Johnny will go down. It's just a matter of who's going to be, and it will be Griff.
It's a 5-stack from the Kaolin Wardens on the left side of the map. Trixtank has not got much left to play with. Good damage, but maybe not enough. Gino can't finish off the kill, but a TKO might as well just be as good as a KO if Deathwalker isn't going to rotate across the map. Gold Fury will be the first objective to fall down 15 minutes in this game. The Kaolin Wardens, off the back of a phenomenal initiation from Trixtank. What was it, 3-man ultimate? Whirlwind Rage of Steel? Just doesn't matter if Johnny leaps in and whiffs his ult twice and then has to retreat after not Gino spawns up the river around him. Great counter engage, great reinitiation, and great objective play from the Kaolin Wardens closes up the gold gap.
Trixtank still trying to be aggressive, or at least maybe keep Gino and Sino out of this red buff camp that was stolen away. But that's only the second time that we, or I guess technically that's the third time now that we've seen Johnny go for this Ragnarok, but the second time that we've seen him miss a couple of those initial bites and end up dropping a kill because of it. Maybe a little bit of the fatigue starting to set in here for the Hex Mambo team as we start getting to these later hours, especially for those guys over across the pond.
Yeah, it is going to be tough, but that's the nature of competition, I suppose. And I trust Hex Mambo, ever the veterans, every single one of them have at least got some SPL pedigree behind them. Should be able to make some sort of mounted aggression here. And it's not to say that the Kaolin Wardens are completely out of hot water. Again, Hex Mambo are a team that are slated to play at that 25-30 minute mark. I know that we may be deceived by the pacing that they've set so far with that very quick start. I believe 3 kills in about 7 minutes. But since then, it's slowed down and Hex Mambo has regained their own pacing. The time's clicking onward. Hex Mambo in an even state or even slightly ahead. Considering how much weight they put on the later phase, I think the Kaolin Wardens are probably pretty unhappy with the pace so far.
I gotta imagine, though, that maybe Hex Mambo aren't also as happy with how little pressure they have been putting on the beads this game, and that's the second ultimate that we've seen out of Trixtank. Definitely an amazing ultimate. Got 3 sets of beads out of there. Sets up perfectly for Johnny, but now that that fight is over, none of the Kaolin Wardens are wanting to fight. Haven't seen any further pressure from Johnny with these Ragnaroks just yet, and with these beads now coming back up, it means that you're gonna have to see it happen all over again if the Hex Mambo want to be able to get another initiation.
Well, Trix has at least got Blink and Ultimate available, so he can do it again. Johnny still has his Ultimate, so 10 seconds left if he wants to make a rotation over towards Relentless One, and he's already found him. Relentless One's been all over the map, whereas Deathwalker has continually just sat in his lane and farmed up. So far, having taken a Tier 1 tower, at least does something with the time that his team buys for him. A little bit of global gold, a little bit of global experience, and exposing a Tier 2, always incredibly valuable, especially considering how strong towers are in 9-5. But Ro calls it out perfectly during his cast earlier about Deathwalker. This guy just will not rotate until he's about 5 or 6 items deep into the build, and so far it just continues to be true. Level 18, he doesn't really need that many more items. Maybe go get involved, Deathwalker.
I mean, we have also been seeing consistently that he's sold this Bancroft's talent to either finish the Bumba's hammer and then work towards another item, or just outright buy another item in its place. So this item never really does seem to stick around beyond that 5th item for Deathwalker.
Yeah, but Bancroft's talent is just so strong in the early game, and it synergizes so well with Hades. Every time you Pillars of Agony, what's the answer? I'm going to hit him back. I'm stuck here anyway. But as you're hitting the Hades, he's only getting more and more power from that Bancroft's talent passive. As time goes on, the Kaolin Warden's burst potential is going to come much, much higher, so that Bancroft's passive loses out a little bit of its value. So it makes sense to me that he would like to instead shift it to that Bumba's hammer, rather, for the additional sustain and poke. Speaking of poke, E-Chrome takes a lot.
Double Hunter dive in. Johnny goes up against Sino, the Trebuchet firing in the midst of it, but Johnny uses the Ragnarok to try and get away. But can Relentless One keep this chase up against E-Chrome? No, good Riptide, or I should say a bad Riptide, is actually going to be the deterrent in the midst of this fight. Trixtank holding on, but E-Chrome just gets poked out, and Trixtank misses out on that ultimate, doesn't grab anybody back.
The only reason E-Chrome dies there is because he chooses to turn around. He chose to take that fight inside of the tower. Trixtank over the wall was able to stop the aggression of the Kaolin Wardens. Blinks over, make sure that Relentless One can't keep up his aggression, even stripping away those beads. And E-Chrome says, okay, well, I've got some teammates here. Maybe I could take this fight. Incorrect. You should have just kept on walking out. 30 seconds of the grayscale for him to think about that mistake. And not much for the Kaolin Wardens to do with that aggression. Even though they're 4 stacked on the left side with just Trickstank and Johnny hovering nearby, the Kaolin Wardens are not willing to push into that tier 1 tower. Primal Fury still a couple seconds away from respawning as well. So Hex Mambo, although they do lose their ADC, I think the only thing they actually lose is a couple of moments of Echrome not farming and both of the Rama's relics.
Deathwalker in this game right now has quite literally been the guy, hey, what's going on over there? Y'all having some fun?
Yeah,
All
y'all
right, cool,
good?
cool. I'm gonna just stay over here, guys. I'm not level 20 yet. I'll get there eventually. As he clears out yet another wave, keeps his tower up, and keeps his XP lead. Level 19, highest in the game. But again, that comes from the fact that he hasn't left that lane at all. You gotta imagine once that level 20 is there, once he's got that Bumbus Hammer, that's probably the call for him to leave.
Yeah, I mean, what else is he gonna farm for? Eventually,
The
you're just out of. I suppose.
Maybe.
If he gets to 6 item before he leaves the lane, I'll have some words with him because his team would benefit from having somebody else that can burn beads, and Hades is very good at that. The second ability, a 2-second silence on essentially a 10-second cooldown, is just really good.
Primal Fury, 40% health. House comes out from zeros. The Firebolts not finding any points of connection. A little bit onto Relentless One. Primal Fury has not been leased, though. The Kaolin Wardens will finally get rid of it, but that opens it up to be actually secured by it. I thought maybe Hex Mambo could steal it. Now it's the
Double.
reinitiation as Relentless finds 2. Trickstank tries to pick up anybody, but he's not going to grab it, so Zero's falling low. Relentless One
He's
will
here.
give up the chase under the tower, but Deathwalker has finally left the lane, but only to hold off a couple of members, only to keep his teammates alive.
Yeah, he says, all right, you guys are inside of your own tower. I guess things are looking pretty rough. No, actually, he ticks to level 20 first. Deathwalker says, okay, I finally hit my timer, and decides to rotate out, finishing up the Bumba's Hammer as well. This Hades is very nearly as powerful as he's going to get throughout the duration of this game. Better late than never, I suppose, 21 minutes in. Kaolin Wardens, though, are the aggressors, able to take not only the Gold Fury, the Primal Fury, that is, as well as the Pyromancer, pushing the gold right back to dead even. Experience largely even as well. Some slight leads for Hex Mambo here or there, maybe the largest being Deathwalker on the map, 2 levels over his opposition, but it doesn't seem to matter. Experience is not so far removed that the Kaolin Wardens, I think, are even thinking about it. Gold, completely even as well. It's all about map state advantages, and as it stands, Hex Mambo are in the better map state. 2 tier 1 towers already removed from the Wardens. And, well, Hex Mambo's got a composition that scales very well to the team fight phase, so it seems the Wardens are just falling into Mambo's old traps.
It's a very risky Fury pulled on that left side. Kaolin Wardens held on to it to like 15% health. They dropped it, and I thought at that point, that's Hex Mambo's. They can easily grab that, but it did seem that Moswell and Sino were able to help secure that one and keep themselves in this game, get that gold bounty, and pick up a couple kills for themselves as well throughout this entire game, where it's sitting at 5 kills, 22.5 minutes in. Not unlike any of the other matchups that we've seen so far with these EU teams. These are typically how a lot of these matchups have been going.
They have been, and we are getting to that typical moment where Hex Mambo has decided to push the gas pedal. As of now, not much on the map that it seems like they're willing to fight over, but you gotta think Hex Mambo's draft is very good at just holding on to the Fire Giant, generating threat, forcing the Kaolin Wardens to walk in. Deathwalker has got nearly infinite sustain as long as there's at least 1 minion nearby for him to heal off of. That said, Hex Mambo have lost their sentry in the Fire Giant pit. Kaolin Warden's able to walk up and take that with relative ease. That said, again, Hex Mambo, 3 sentries in pocket, should be able to reestablish that dominant ward vision. And the second the Kaolin Warden's ADC Griff shows himself on the map, with Hex Mambo as hard grouped as they are on the right-hand side, we might see them decide to initiate. And who are they supposed to initiate on? It's Moswell. Every single time. If you can close gap onto this Opwash and make sure that he's either forced to drop his ultimate defensively or at least take some of his relics, it'll be that much easier for Johnny to follow up and do it on his own. Deathwalker could potentially take that 1v1 himself, or even just Echrome going up into the air and following up off of Pillars of Agony or any other form of CC can be very strong. Similarly, Sino, very susceptible to the dive.
Griff has given up his push on the left side, and instead it's a startup of the Fire Giant for the Kaolin Wardens. Only 4 here. Johnny just now getting back towards this right side of the map at those right mid camps. But just as quickly as the Kaolin Wardens have pulled that one, they will leash it away. We do see Moswell dropping a few corpses within the pit, just in case that one does get started up and a fight breaks out.
Yeah, but no fight is going to break out as of now. Neither of these teams confident in their ability to force the engagement. Fire Giant does a whole lot of damage, and you don't want to have to fight it as the unofficial 6-man of whichever team has not pulled it. Kaolin Wardens finally pulled out, and Gino, he's taking a lot of damage.
Gino also gets knocked up by the Fire Giant. He's down to half HP. Hex Mambo still pushing up. Johnny a little bit further behind before they want to start this one up. But now Hex Mambo have the aggressive positioning around the Fire Giant, even despite the fact that they are losing out on the ward coverage around the pit. Relentless one eating a lot of poke between Echrome and Deathwalker. He'll have to back himself out and sustain next to Gino.
It's crazy. Hex Mambo just waiting for opportunities, waiting for the Kaolin Wardens to make their mistake. The mistake this time was losing out 80% of your HP to the objective.
Johnny goes in, immediately halts himself, and a stop of the Fire Giant pull by Hex Mambo. Now they're the ones backing up and giving some positioning over to the Kaolin Wardens. We see again Moswall dropping corpses at the foot of the Fire Giant. But all that poke that went to Gino, all that poke that went to Relentless, has been slowly healing back up thanks to the help of this Umoja.
Yeah, Umoja's very slowly at that, still working on getting that HP back. There's a very low percentage chance that Hex Mambo could actually do Fire Giant there, considering they're standing directly on a sentry ward from the Kaolin Wardens. Head back to base, buy some more sentries, should be the MO of Hex Mambo, but looking at their pockets, not a single sentry in it. On the other hand, Kaolin Wardens have still got some wards to play with.
Whoa, Moswall stepping a little too far out of position against 2 zeros. We'll find the first kill of the fight. Johnny's still going aggressive against Gino, and will think twice when he sees 2 more of the Wardens standing by. But Hex Mambo have found the pick that you were talking on earlier, Mifflin. Moswall down for 45 seconds.
That is a major target loss. That's all of the AoE damage from the Kaolin Wardens. So now Hex Mambo very much in an advantageous spot for the team fight. Sino, the last remaining member that it should be easily targeted out, and it's Deathwalker who closes gap.
He does find Relentless One, does get the ultimate from the solo laner, so that's a big offensive or defensive tool down. And Zeros with that potion toss is really starting to put some numbers out up against Griff. Health bar not so healthy, 40%, but Griff does have some lifesteal, so he'll get most of that back.
Moswall's only 10 seconds left on the respawn. Hex Mambo, after all this poking and prodding and finding their priority target, really are only able to take the Pyromancer. And considering Moswall holds on to all of his relics through that pick, he's going to be at full strength once this fight starts again. Hex Mambo back in a neutral state, as are the Kaolin Wardens. Going to have to start this dance completely anew. Hex Mambo have shown their hand. It's wait and see. If somebody steps a little too far forward, they'll be there. If somebody pulls the Fire Giant from the Kaolin Wardens and gets dropped low, Hex Mambo will be there. But until then, I don't think Hex Mambo are going to push the envelope. They're not pulling fire. They're not forcing the Kaolin Wardens forward. Neither team with a lead, experience, gold, or otherwise. This is a dead even match 27 minutes into the game.
And with one offering left until a Trebuchet, that could maybe open the door for Hex Mambo, force somebody towards that left side of the map, because that's the only lane that still has that tier 1 on the side of the Warden. So if maybe they can get one more offering, send that Trebuchet out, could potentially force the hands of the Kaolin Wardens, who have once again established some pressure around this Fire Giant pit. But if you look at the ward coverage, everywhere except really inside the pit has gone the way of Hex Mambo.
Relentless One very far forward right now, completely on his own, shows just how tanky he can be through defense and through self-sustain thanks to that Bumba's hammer.
Gino half Omi now, jump in by Johnny, finds one. Gino uses another Riptide to back himself out of the fight, and an immediate disengage once again by the Wardens.
Man, I'm looking at both of these drafts. I'm trying to figure out which one of them wants to be the initiators. And every time I go back to Hex Mambo, you've got all of the AoE CC, Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, Pillars of Agony. You've got great ranged damage confirmation. Very often at the SPL level of play, we'll see ROM players at this point just go into the air and use it for poke somebody out. Maybe the Umoja being on the side of the Kaolin Wardens is dissuading that style of play, but if Echrome lands all 3 shots on any squishy target, he's doing upwards of 50 to 60% of their HP bar, and I don't care if there's a Umoja on the other side if that's happening, because it takes her a while to heal up, especially with the out-of-combat healing nerf in Smite. So, Hex Mambo, I'd love to see them get aggressive. Trickstank in particular, just a blink forward, strip away 1, maybe 2 sets of beads, and create opportunities where Johnny can go in with the Ragnarok, where Deathwalker can go in with the Pillars of Agony. As of now, Hex Mambo just biding their time.
Hex Mambo, Trix does find a little bit of CC onto Gino, but not a whole lot of damage. Both the frontliners of Hex Mambo standing at the forefront of the fight, both of them biting for anybody to step forward, waiting for just one person to step out of line. The Kaolin Wardens are playing very patiently, even though they've been spread out for these last couple of team fights, these last couple of moments here. The Kaolin Wardens haven't been fully grouped up as 5. And again, Hex Mambo retreat back to base. They reset themselves by a couple of items, and we return to this Fire Giant dance.
That's a good
Whoa.
pull in. 2-man stun.
Gino gonna keep walking forward. So is Relentless. Zeros forced into the cabin, but Zeros doesn't have much health left to his name. He only needs one shot up against him, but he will find a way out. Snipes coming out of Ecrom are good, but Trickstech is gonna be the first one down. The Kaolin Wardens have finally struck pay dirt in this fight. Johnny, using all of his abilities to wrangle himself out of this team fight, will find a way over the wall, and the Kaolin Wardens can retreat back with their 1 kill.
Should be able to resustain a fair deal on the way back towards this Fire Giant. Trickstech dead for 30 seconds. That's the primary initiator lost. Zeros loses out on both of his relics, and Ecrom does not have his ultimate. This is going to be a very difficult defense.
This is a fully HP Ecrom on this ROM. Fire Giant is burning. It's down to 10%. The Kaolin Wardens will grab it. A very close call. And Relentless One will continue to chase. Ecrom is just going to lose the boxing match up against Griff. Relentless at a quarter HP is fighting into
serious?
2 and is winning this battle. He'll get some help, some backup.
Still alive.
And an ultimate from Moswell, where Deathwalker is only delaying the inevitable as Griff picks up a double kill.
Bumba's hammer is just disgusting. Relentless One heals through Pillars of Agony, heals through Zeros. Every single time he applies an ability, his next auto attack regenerates some HP and does additional damage. The Kaolin Wardens, and specifically not Gino, breaks the bank. He says if Hex Mambo isn't going to initiate, we'll do it ourselves.
5 versus 3. Trix, Zeros, and Johnny all with ultimates online. Kaolin Wardens
Good
walking
damage.
forward, but Zeros is putting a lot of poke back onto Relentless One. And I'm not sure the 5 strong and the Kaolin Wardens are going to push into this Titan room just yet.
No, there are still 4 towers still standing. 3 if you don't want to count the one on left, and I suppose you wouldn't, considering a stiff breeze would knock that one over. Kaolin Wardens resetting themselves to this tier 1 mid tower are taking very aggressive positioning. Relentless One isolated. Could have lost out on a little bit more, but I think Johnny would have been surprised had he gone for the Ragnarok that this Osiris still has his beads available. The Kaolin Wardens finally, with Fire Giant on 5 belts, immediately strip away the bird and can start to work their way all the way across the map. Pyromancer, Primal Fury, a couple tier 1 towers, or maybe just one as that stiff breeze did come and knock down the left side. The Kaolin Wardens now in a very good position to start leveraging this lead. On a defense, this draft from the Wardens would have crumbled. It would have folded like a lawn chair. There's no way they're keeping this base alive against the just pure initiation in these simplified engagements of Hex Mambo. But on offense, double hunter composition, sieging out towers with a traditional mage of AoE damage to create that space. Gino won't have to work nearly as hard to find the Riptides, to find the ultimates. The Kaolin Warden's siege potential is incredibly high. I think all the weight rests on Hex Mambo's mid laner. Zeros has got to be the difference maker on these base defenses. If he can apply damage to the backline, if he can deal damage to Griff or Sino or even Moswell, that's one way back in. Damage dealt to Moswell, though, will not stick. He can eat his own minions, and he's got a Yamoja to resustain him. So maybe you're just looking towards these 2 hunters.
There is a Trebuchet here sitting in this left Phoenix, so a little bit of extra siege defense for the Hex Mambo squad as the Kaolin Wardens begin their push-up. A 5-man grouping, and it's going to be Relentless One immediately taking away half HP of Zeros. Gets the ultimate out of the mid laner, snipes in the air by Ecrom. Will do some good damage to Sino, but Relentless is the one who is low. That Trebuchet firing through, but not going to find a home. But man, look at the HP bars on Zeros. He actually almost just tied to a fleeting breath. Instead, that opens up the door for the Wardens to take the Phoenix.
Right and left, Phoenix now stripped away. Only one tier 2 tower still standing, and for how much longer? Not much longer. The wave's already pushed up, and the Kaolin Wardens are healthy yet again, but take a peek at the relic usage. Beads lost for Sino, Moswell, and Relentless One. Ultimate still available for Johnny. All he has to do is pick up one of those targets on this next defense, and it could open the door for Hex Mambo to potentially find a fight.
Johnny on the right side. Keep your eyes set to the jungler, but Sino is making sure that he's got watch on where Johnny is going. Minion wave walking up now with the Wardens. This EFG means they should be able to shred through this Phoenix if they're given enough time. Relentless One silenced out and eating a lot of poke and a lot of CC, but so is the Phoenix. A lot of damage thrown down it onto Griff. Phoenix still stands. Griff is low. Griff is almost gone, but it's not quite enough damage. Deathwalker holding a few in place. Trickstang does pick up
Watch
Moswell,
Johnny.
but it's the frontliners who are so low. Zeros grabs Griff for the back line. Moswell trades out for Trickstank, and Johnny will drag Sino away so Echrome can find a kill on a Relentless One. Meanwhile, Zeros up in the cabin will fire off those bolts and get a little bit of poke back at the Wardens.
3 members of the Kaolin Wardens now on the retreat. Johnny nearby might be able to close that gap, but will not commit himself to the fight. With all said and done, the Kaolin Wardens still do break the entirety of Hex Mambo's base. Right, left, and center Phoenix going to be down for this next Fire Giant siege. Right Phoenix should come back up, but that's the lowest value Phoenix on the map. The one closest to the Fire Giant is the easiest to defend regardless. The Kaolin Wardens do so much with just one Fire Giant power play. And here's the unfortunate truth of the Hex Mambo position. I don't think you stick to your base. You can't stick around. We've seen now that your Phoenix defense is not great. Only barely is Hex Mambo capable of defending their last bird with every single carry of the Kaolin Wardens lacking CC immunity. So what are they going to do with an enhanced Fire Giant on the Kaolin Wardens? How are Hex Mambo going to defend in a situation where those relics are back up and the Phoenixes are already down? I think the Order side has to step up. They can't let this Fire Giant go down for free, but that is a very difficult ask of Hex Mambo. The base needs to be defended.
We do have the left side pushed up fairly far. Minion waves in the mid lane, push that to the midway point there. So there is still some time for Hex Mambo to buy around this Fire Giant to delay the Kaolin Wardens. But they can't stay here forever, Mifflin. They're going to have to send somebody back. The question is, if you're Hex Mambo, who do you send back to defend, and who do you leave to try and stop this Fire Giant?
I'm not certain you can send anyone legitimately back to defend. You haven't got the global presence. You haven't got a teleport in your relic slots. All the Kaolin Wardens need to do is keep up this pressure and force Hex Mambo to respond.
Fire Giant burning quickly. Deathwalker goes in the back line with Trickstank. Trick's trying to find anybody with the ult, and will only grab Sino. Snipes are good from Echrome. Sino is very low. Trickstank and Zeros will team up to take down Sino, and now it's a 5v4, but the health bars are low.
Griff.
Zeros one hit away, but Griff can't find it. Instead, it's Echrome to grab that one, while Johnny in the backline is tearing through the tanks, tearing through the carries, half HP on his own, and is boxing back out against Relentless One. Won't win that trade out, needs a little bit of help, but Moswell turns it around for a double.
Relentless One now on the chase, and he is in hot pursuit. Deathwalker will not be allowed to walk away for free. Just a little bit more damage is all it's going to take. Stun is good. And now the damage from Moswell will slowly poke him away. Ultimate back up for Relentless One, and that will spell the end of Deathwalker. Hex Mambo are able to take out 3 members of the Kaolin Wardens and maintain their base. I think Kaolin Wardens is getting a little bit overzealous on their Fire Giant pull. Had they just pulled, reset, and continually done so, Hex Mambo would have been forced to hover nearby and allow those Fire Minion Waves to start slowly working their way towards the Titan Room. Instead, the Kaolin Wardens pull and immediately re-engage onto Hex Mambo, and Hex Mambo said, great, that's exactly what we want. We want to fight right now, because if this goes any longer, our base is going to die to PvE. So Hex Mambo take the initiation, they take the engagement, and they take the lives of 3. Kaolin Wardens gain nothing, and in fact actually lose out on map state. Left side Phoenix respawned, right side Phoenix healthy, and the mid Phoenix has already pushed up those minion waves and will respawn very shortly.
But the Kaolin Wardens go right back to the Fire Giant, already 4 there, and it's just going to be Trickstank there in time to try and stop it, but he will not walk forward. The Kaolin Wardens grab their second enhanced Fire Giant of the game, and now the Hex Mambo either have to push forward and try and fight them out of the base, otherwise they're defending against these already weakened Phoenixes that they couldn't defend when they were fully alive and healthy.
First Phoenix, I think Hex Mambo will fight on top of. Second and third Phoenix, that's when they're going to get a little bit antsy and try and take the initiation, try and take the engagement outside of Phoenix line. You don't want those birds going down yet again. Hex Mambo's name of the game is just extending the match. Now that all 3 Phoenixes are back up, the Kaolin Wardens have to redo all the work that they've done just prior. That said, this time around, it's an enhanced Fire Giant, so you don't need to concern yourselves with backdoor protections. And Sino, Griff, or even Relentless One at that, can just solo all these birds that are going to be permanently weakened. Oni Fury Waves will do the exact same thing. The Kaolin Wardens are still in a very good position, but Hex Mambo are looking much better than when the last Fire Giant had rolled through. I'm really keeping my eyes on Zeros. His damage output has been integral to Hex Mambo. If he's connecting with priority targets, that's Hex Mambo winning a team fight. If Johnny could just make use of 1 set of burnt beads, and no beads are burnt currently, that's 1 win condition for Hex Mambo. The Kaolin Wardens have got upwards of 3 minutes to play with on this Fire Giant, so they don't necessarily need to go very quickly. As long as they can keep eyes on all 5 members of Mambo, they can sort of split the map afterward.
It was a full party in the jungle for Hex Mambo, walking over towards that left side. Riptide does catch Deathwalker, and he's got to use that dash to get back through. Sino throws the ultimate into the backline. Zero's got to use the ultimate in response, so the River's Rebuke are up to hold in as many as possible. Zero still firing out damage, but he can't get to that backline. Johnny doesn't grab anyone with that Ragnarok, and everyone on the Wardens looking a lot healthier than those on the side of Mambo.
Tricks tank in, only grabs one. Sino tossed forward and removed.
No, E-Chrome is taking Sino off of this map. Now it's a 5v4. Left side Phoenix down. E-Chrome pops his beads, pops his ages, and returns the fire shots back through. But he might go down here just to the damage of those mages. Able to make it back to the fountain. The Kaolin Wardens get 1 Phoenix, but that's all they can get.
You lost 1 ADC, but 1 still stands for the Kaolin Wardens. The base can still take some damage here, but in a 5 versus 4, I think Hex Mambo very much like their odds. Kaolin Wardens are able to take down that left side bird, the most pivotal bird on the map. Small win over to the Kaolin Wardens, but we've seen now Hex Mambo are rapidly approaching that point of the game where they are allowed to group up, and Johnny finds Relentless One lazy back
Half
in.
HP, almost dead, has to use the Lord of the Afterlife to get out. A perfect start to the fight by Johnny, but how much more can they find? Zero's wrapping around the backside, could go as far as behind the tower. Johnny goes up to the ultimate, but doesn't pick up anybody. The crits coming out of Grip will slow that down, and with Deathwalker's reinitiation, that's going to be an ult out of Grip to get back to the tower.
Great play from the Kaolin Wardens to group up to just walk away. Great disengage. If Griff is anywhere else, that's an easy pickup for Johnny to at least strip away those beads. Believe he was actually on the heels of Relentless One, so that would have just been Relentless One's life, as he has not gotten any CC immunity available to him. So just really good wherewithal from Griff to apply that damage and realize that he could still get out with Airstrike immediately afterward. Maintaining 4 enhanced Fire Giants, Sino rejoins the Realm of the Living. I think the Kaolin Wardens are going to go for another siege attempt. Mid-Phoenix seems to be the name of the game. Keep your eyes on Tricks Tank, though. Whirlwind and Rage of Steel is still up, and Bede's still down for 3 members of the Wardens.
Only Mozball still holding on to his, alongside Gino, who hasn't upgraded his just yet. Instead, it's that fortifying shell that's been able to pay dividends in the midst of these fights. Left side wave is pushed up a little bit, and with that Fire Giant now a minute away, the Kaolin Wardens have reset themselves to go for yet another push. Power potions, elixirs, all those starting to come online for this Chaos side team. Because Mifflin, we are rapidly approaching now this 42-minute mark in this game. 1 team fight could spell the end.
We'll see if the Kaolin Wardens have learned their lesson from the last Fire Giant fight. All they need to do is control the positioning of Hex Mambo. Johnny has now shown himself on the left side of the map, so 5 members of the Kaolin Wardens grouped up, realize that at best it's a 5 versus 4 here. At worst for Hex Mambo, somebody else is going to split push as well. So keep your eyes on them. Seems like Mambo are not going to give over the fight that easily. Gino could find an ultimate here, but will not. Great disengage from Tricks Tank. Does buy time for E-Chrome to get out of dodge.
Johnny wrapping around the left side of the jungle. The Trebuchet is here to fire a couple shots, but it should go down swiftly to Hex Mambo. Kaolin Wardens all grouped up in mid while Johnny's still hovering this left side. Deathwalker goes in, only finds Griff with the ultimate, and Griff will instantly get back out. Deathwalker on his last legs. An ultimate from Relentless will hold him in place, and the ultimate from Gino makes sure he goes down. Johnny can't find anybody in the back line. Relentless One still charging forward as he's got 1 tether to him. Zero's uses every relic he's got to stay alive, but it is not enough. 3 members of Hex Mambo are down, and the Kaolin Wardens can charge right into the throne room and take game number 1. They'll take the Phoenix along the way, but the Kaolin Wardens will get off to a great start, at least here in game 1. Can Johnny and E-Chrome make the defense? I don't know if Johnny has enough health to stop this one out. Kaolin Wardens half HP on the Titan. Johnny back in, but the Titan will go down.
Deathwalker waits 43 minutes to go for his first initiation in a team fight and struggles to hit pay dirt. Connects with 1 and loses his life. From there, Johnny goes into Ragnarok behind the engagement, trying to at least buy time for Deathwalker to get a Bumba's heal or leap away or find a miracle. Nothing comes to him, and that's an easy win for the Wardens. Well, easy might not be right. That is a very long match. That said, they were always in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say that that was an easy one on the side of the Wardens, but they do find a Game 1 win. Can they continue it in Game 2? We'll find out right after this.
that man, but he had the horsey, and horsey, don't you stop! Fido King, Fido King!
I gave up dabbing for Lynn.
Cool. No more dabbing for Final Call.
He looked at me and said, I'm going to be on that stage next year. I'm going to become a world champion.
Ripping through, Titan, down, ball three, double kill myself.
Another 50-minute banger from the Hex Mambo. They were able to turn this around, a bit of a flippy-floppy game. Both of these teams take in advantages at different moments in time, but Hex Mambo are able to close that one out after a 50-minute slugfest. Ro, that was a rough one, and I, of course, am just messing with you. It was, in fact, the Kaolin Wardens who were able to finish that one up.
Yes, it was. And off the back of Griff, honestly, like what a game from him. And I would want to call out Relentless one as well. Taking this Boomba's Hammer meta to the whole different level, you know. He's got the early game in the Osiris and then also a late game that seemed to probably surpass the Hades of Deathwalker and was able to just have this huge impact. We saw the team fight past the Fire Giant, chasing down past the back camps as well and just healing through all of the damage from zeros, healing through all of the damage inside of that Hades ult from using an ability, using an auto attack, and every second taking off that ability is another heal coming up as well. But let's take a look at it, Griff. You know, in these team fights, basically not going unchecked, but look at the amount of teammates in front of him, ready to take this Fenrir ult for him. You know, he's got a Yamodra on his side and is able to just rain down these auto attacks, dashing in. That's how much confidence he had.
Absolutely. He absolutely no fear. Griff more than willing to go aggressively, using that ult aggressively as well. We saw him use the airstrike there. And countless other times throughout the course of the match. You see him there with a giant 700 damage crits there onto Akrom. That's got to feel bad.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's what the character's designed to do, right? So if he can get it done, and we're looking at Relentless One here as well. You know, this is Griff's point of view, but Relentless One, higher health out of that Hades ult than when he went into it.
And of course, Griff sitting here with 33,000 damage. That's 2.67 KDA right there. Really shows you the value of Griff, and well, as an extension of that value, the Jing Wei as well. We've seen how maneuverable it's been, how much damage, how well it really gels with this attack speed crit meta, and Griff really, really good at putting that to show.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's dashing past the team fight. He was in the enemy backline facing back towards them, you know. So mobile of a god, perfectly synergizing with these builds that are meta right now as well. So, look, Wardens decided, you know, we understand the meta. We're going to mix it a little bit with what we were doing before on day one, you know, bring some of the early aggression, even though they didn't find too many kills. In fact, they were at a slight deficit in the early game as well. But, you know, pulling out this double hunter, one of them in the jungle, surprisingly, team comp with this Relentless One on the Osiris, you know, again, running that Boomba's Hammer. So a little bit of everything and kind of taking the meta to the next step.
Quiet game from Sino there here on this Skadi jungle, though. I'm not really sure this is the way forward. It definitely didn't look bad for him here, but I think we could have seen him on something a little bit different. Maybe would have made this game a little bit easier for the Wardens.
Yeah, look, I wanted to see him actually take the Osiris, but honestly, Relentless One piloted it so well that it's fine for the Relentless One to have it. It seemed like a good matchup into the Hades. Yeah, maybe we can switch up and go away from the Skadi. You know, this is the second time we've seen it now. I don't think it's really worked out great both times, so we maybe see what else he has in the pool. I've seen him play bracket and ranked, but that being said, a lot of the bans from all of the teams that they're having to face this week are actually headed towards Sino because he's a very core part of this team.
And speaking of teams playing this week, all of our teams in the studio here this week for SMITE Masters will, of course, be playing on the Alienware Aurora R10s. And we are thrilled to be able to partner with Alienware once again this year for Season 9. Such an incredible company with these machines, letting us use them. We've even got some fancy laptops here on the desk. So make sure that you go and give them a follow on their Instagram, their Twitter, @Alienware. And you can also head over to alienwarearena.com for some giveaways, product stuff, and more.
Yeah, now we can move on to what Hex Mambo have coming up next, right? They have to fight back. It's been a long day for them, but, you know, clearly Wardens have responded to the Mambo meta, I guess I'll call it.
The Mambo meta.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm happy with that, but
the Mambo meta.
Yeah, I'll go with it. You know, they've created this meta of this slow gameplay and not much happening in the early game. Wardens have mixed it with their play style and made a little bit happen in the early game, but also scale well. So now it's Mambo's turn to kind of turn it up a notch and decide what they want to do next. So Wardens, you know, again, playing the early game. Mambo have played the early game a little bit in their last set. The end of the last set were able to win quite a quick game in their standards, quite quick, you know, in 30-something minutes. Normally they are pushing towards 40 to sometimes 50, we've seen. So, you know, I imagine we might see Johnny on something more teamfight centric. We've seen him on the Loki, which again is just like a single target god, much like the Fenrir was just now. I think I'd prefer to see him something on the Humbats if he could, because that gives him that big circle ultimate on top of the big circle ultimate from the Hades, for example. But then again, you know, Hades, that game wasn't great for Deathwalker. You know, maybe he can have more impact on something like a Baron.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, on top of that, I'm really surprised that we haven't seen Johnny move back to this set. We know that he's got a really decent set under his pocket. It hasn't really been banned, you know, compared to all these other auto attack based junglers. You know, we've seen Nemesis banned basically every single game. The Kali, even the Bakasura has seen some removal from play, but this set has still been left pretty much open, and we've We've seen Oath play it to a really good effect earlier on. I just don't know why Johnny isn't picking it up.
Yeah, it just looks like they're putting so much emphasis on this Boomba's Hammer, right? Set and not a god that can synergize well with Boomba's Hammer. Once upon a time he could, you know, he could throw in his ultimate, he could throw a clone down, auto attack, throw a clone down again, and each time he would do that, he would get that Boomba's Hammer proc. Not how it works anymore, so generally not seen with Boomba's Dagger into a Boomba's Hammer anymore. You more likely see him with either Jungler, I think, is what Oath bought on him. But not to say you can't still play that starter. It just seems like they're really loving Boomba's Hammer. And when I say they, I mean Deathwalker and Johnny. They're both loving it every time. I think every game we've seen them so far, they've both bought it.
Well, Boomba's Hammer has been super popular in the solo lane just in general this week. We've seen this Baron, which has been a breakout pick so far in that solo lane, basically every single time. I'm not sure that we've seen a Baron Samity without the Boomba's Hammer so far.
Not in the solo lane anyway. We've seen him in support, and he's had some success. He's had some poor games as well. It seems to be more consistent in the solo lane if he is, if Baron is on that team. But then again, he's definitely got his weaknesses, and the more we see him, the more his weaknesses are being exposed each time. So I think Connor was on the Wargs was playing cleaner up against the Baron and getting that pressure. And I think Relentless One knows how to play those gods. He can play the pressure. He's played the Osiris. So maybe that's one god as well that Deathwalker could pick up for himself. I believe he was, almost a pioneer of that god back in the day. He was the one that brought it into meta. Maybe not brought it into meta because everybody was playing it, but he certainly piloted it himself back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and Trelly were specifically talking about things that are similar to that Hades. I think the Cerberus has been brought up in mine and Trelly's discussions at the very least. A character who's very, very good at countering heavy sustained gods, which is a lot of what we've been seeing in that solo lane and across the board in general. What are your opinions on that Cerberus? Do you think this could be something that Deathwalker moves over towards?
Look, again, it's the set argument again, right? It seems like a strong god that they've both played before, but doesn't have the Boomba's Hammer. So if that's what they want, then they can't play those gods. They seem to be, maybe limiting themselves, but they're doing it in the right way. They are missing out on some of these god picks just to get this, I don't want to say overpowered item, but just to get this, flavor of the month, this item they seem to be loving right now. So they're giving up a lot to take that luxury, and maybe it's shooting them in the foot a little bit.
So in that case, thinking about things that can utilize that Boomba's Hammer, have maybe a similar kind of role to this Hades, what are the options really for Deathwalker here?
I think take a card out of Relentless One's book because he's the one that's building these, we saw him build the Golden Blade in the early game, so he has that clear and he has that fast rotation potential while still leaving the room for the Boomba's Hammer late game. So, I think he's doing the right thing. He's made the first step in terms of countering this meta or, putting his own spin on this meta, I suppose. So we know Deathwalker can play those gods. Maybe he can take it away, or maybe they just want to ban that Osiris away so then he can just go back to his Hades without having to struggle up against the Osiris.
Or even maybe the Baron. I don't know. We've already talked about the Baron. Like, this could... I think I made this argument to Mifflin the other day, too. Like, Baron and Hades are basically the same character, right? They both have a heal that they can apply to teammates nearby. They both have a suck. There's suck in a cone. There's suck in a circle.
There is.
Choose your pick. They both have, forms of CC, the root from Baron and the silence from Hades. This is a god that we know Deathwalker likes, and it definitely works well with the Boomba's Hammer.
Yeah, look, I think he's got the option. He had the option last game, so Wardens might leave it open again, but he decided not to go for it. We don't know that reason, only he does, so we'll see if he switches up this game, but maybe they make their changes elsewhere in their team composition.
Maybe.
Maybe they didn't like the Xing Chen, for example. They saw more success on the Terror and the Sobek, which, some of them are being taken away. The Emojo was obviously fantastic for Trixtank if he can get his hands on that. So maybe we see slightly different bans and slightly different early picks, because last game, all of these top picks like Jing Wei and Yamodra and stuff like that were all open, but they decided to go for a Baba Yaga first pick because they just thought, what, all of these top picks are open, we'll get them later. But in the end, they just picked their Hades anyway. So maybe they pivot a little bit, go for first pick again, but don't take the Baba Yaga this time. Instead, vote for a Jing Wei, maybe a Yamoja.
Ro, I realize I've been asking you basically non-stop questions about how to replace the Hades. I apologize. That's maybe my own personal preference. But ladies and gents, we are having a couple of small issues just with the lobby. So we're going to be back in just a few minutes. Stay right where you are. And we are back. Sorry for the delay, guys, but we should be getting ready for picks and bans now. We've already talked a whole bunch about the Hex Mambo, obviously the team that may need to make more changes than the Kaolin Wardens. But, Oro, are we expecting anything different from the Wardens here?
Look, it's the Mambo's choice to make a change, right?
Sure.
They're the ones that lost the game. Wardens probably just want to do the same thing and get the same result. So Mambo immediately starting with the same ban already. Amaterasu, Nemesis taken away. It was the Mercury in the third slot, I believe, in the last game. And the Wardens sticking with the same bans. You know what? Why change what isn't broke? But the Emoja banned away, so it looks like the Mamba do not want to first pick it, even though they would have had that option, and Loki taken away from Johnny.
Maybe they want to move towards the Mercury themselves. Johnny definitely feels comfortable on that character.
It is available.
But there are still a bunch of characters and first picks that are available. The Jingwei does get secured in this time. No Baba Yaga locked in that first slot there. So this is maybe already a better look.
Yeah, smart move by Mambo. They decided, you know what, last game we gave Wardens 2 top picks. We gave them Jingwei and Umoja right off the bat. Let's take away the Umoja. Let's pick the Jingwei for themselves. We don't need the Baba Yaga first pick. You know, we're going to go towards this. You know, let's just take the top picks rather than trying to get our top picks.
Rama is going to be the counter lock in here, something that we've seen boxing into that Jingwei pretty comfortably, so no surprise there. And the Mercury was left open, and that is going to go the way of Sino here. I don't know why I was about to say Moswell is going to be piloting the Mercury. That would be truly wild.
Yeah, look, draft is always a chess game, I guess. Right? They've made the move to get get this top pick and take the other one away, but then they have to leave the Mercury open. So immediately, Mercury top picked by the Wardens. And that was in a scenario where last game, in the last couple of games of Wardens, where they're just having Sino bottom pick. That's why he's going down to the Skadi and things like that. Now we get, I think, what the weakest god on Warden's team fight was last game, the Skadi, out of here, and now he gets a huge, huge boost in that strong god that is Mercury.
For sure. Looking out to round up that first half, though, Mambo definitely not thinking that the Baba Yaga was a problem. They're going to put zeros back onto it, and I'm going to be okay with that. I think this is a character that he seems more than comfortable on. The Sobek going to be backing up Mambo on the duo lane side of things, and this does look like Osiris going back to Relentless One in that solo lane.
Yeah, don't fix what ain't broke, whatever I said before. And another thing that you don't need to change anything from is that the Sobek on Trix Tank, or the Trix Tank on Sobek, however you want to put it, he's had a lot of success so far. Didn't see the success on Xing Chen, but the Sobek is open this time. He gets to snatch it up, and the Baba Yaga, they get, which they obviously value highly considering they first picked it last game, and now they've immediately, I think, got a much better team comp than what they had last game.
Some final bans here, specifically targeting Moswell, right? These aren't high-priority mid-lane gods. These are high-priority Moswell gods, taking the Upwash away, taking the Vulcan away, which I think is interesting. Don't get me wrong, Vulcan is my favorite god in that mid lane position, but I don't know that it's necessarily ban-worthy here.
Look, that just shows you how much respect that Moswell is demanding.
For sure.
When you can get a player that makes Vulcan get banned, then you know that he's making a large impact. And as well, it just synergizes so well with what Wardens want to do in terms of objective DPS and objective secure as well. It perfectly encapsulates what most of Sino's objective calls usually are.
Taking a page out of Trixtanker's book, it looks like it's going to be Terra here for Gino. Definitely an interesting pickup here. I don't dislike this pick at all. I think Terra always has something to bring to a team fight, and this is something that Wardens are particularly good at, is that team fight situation. Well, I have to see how Hex Mambo are going to reply to that. They still are looking for a solo laner and a jungler here.
A good pick by Wardens because, you know, that knock-up immunity against, you know, well, a couple gods that might have knock-ups on the other side.
All
so
three
can't
of them.
complain. That's right. We will see some anti-heal out of the Sobek, so the healing from Terra might not be as big of a deal. But generally these days, the way she's played, she's not much of a healer. She's just using that ultimate aggressively and maybe sometimes to peel.
Yeah, absolutely. Just so much damage, truly, coming out of that. And especially if you can rack it up with your Mercury, just coming in punching, the Rama even. If you hit that last snipe and it procs the Terra ultimate, that is truly an absurd number.
That as well, but the Rama auto attacks with the 1 as well. So that's 2 points of damage. That's 2 ticks on the Terra ultimate, so you get that damage off faster. So, yeah, exactly. So a very good way to proc that Terra ultimate damage boost.
Ooh, interesting. The Mulan. This is something we've kind of been
Like
rumbling about. This is something that we've had in the discussion, is this Mulan? And I think this is a great pickup. This is something that works really, really well with the Bomber's Hammer, something that works really well with the Soul Eater, which is something that we've been seeing picked up on a lot of these physical solo laners when we've been seeing the Cleo, for example, and the Bastet as well. And we do know that Deathwalker does like this pick.
Yeah, I mean, both of those items viable on her as well, but she could just, Deathwalker could just go back to a normal, you know, warrior meta build. He could go back to the Sigil. He says, you know what, Osiris, well,
Bellona.
Either way, I guess he can still go the Death Toll, I guess, is one, but he might just copy Relentless One's build in terms of building that Golden Blade, getting the early clear online, and he can end up with a Boomba's Hammer of his own. Again, he can go the Shoguns, he can go the auto attack build, and get his Ula some extra DPS on these objectives.
And, you know, when you're looking at a double Hunter meta, who looks better than someone with not one, but 2 dedicated tools to disarm those auto attackers? Osiris, Mercury, and Rama all really relying on that auto attack. Bellona, she's got, what, a 2-second disarm? Something crazy like that. It feels like 2 seconds for sure.
It's certainly going to be a long time. Yeah.
And the shield as well with those block/reflect stacks are definitely going to have an impact on this fight. So definitely don't disagree with this choice from Deathwalker. I think the Bellona could definitely do some stuff here.
Well, we don't know if it's going to Deathwalker now because
That's
they've got
fair.
the 2 hunters. So it might be in the jungle. We might see Johnny piloting the Ula. We're really not sure now. So I've seen him play some hunters in the time. Yeah, he's played Apollo jungle. And now we've got a Bellona into a Zeus, and she may struggle.
Yeah, this is an oh boy moment. Zeus, we've seen it banned a couple times already this week. Haven't seen it played yet. And in an auto-attack meta, could be interesting. Zeus obviously getting that buff recently to his shield. I say recently, it's been a little while now. But that being said, those magical ADC items, those kind of mage attack speed items, haven't been really too favorable at the moment.
No, in fact, they've just been nerfed as well. But, you know, this Zeus, a very Moswell-esque god in terms of the big ultimate. And look at those bans from Alposh and Vulcan. You know, he's had some of his god pool taken away from him. So that just seems to what he has had to default to next. Similar to what Sino's had to do in these other games as well. You know, he's had these bans headed towards him. He had the Mercury band last game, so he had to end up going down to a Skadi, you know. In this game, however, Sino's gotten the priority, gotten the Mercury, and Moswell's going to go going down onto, I guess, the lesser pick of Zeus. Which is
Well,
saying something.
lesser, I think, is something to say here. The Wardens, for all intents and purposes, this could be best of one set for the Wardens, right? They just need to win this one. So if picking up the Zeus is what's going to help them, not necessarily cheese, but take this team by surprise and maybe catch them on something they're not necessarily used to fighting against.
I mean, it perfectly, again, encapsulates what they want to do in these team comps. They've got the objective DPS. As long as they're not getting disarmed by that Bellona, they can always burn these objectives down quite quickly. And that Zeus ult, the Zeus bounce between the shield with the chain lightning, that'll do a lot of damage. And then you got the secure from the detonate as well. So that looks like what they want to do. We're going to see a decent amount of pressure out of that team comp as well. We should see some Mercury ganks at level 5. We should see, any ults in the jungle from any of the above. We should see maybe level 5 fights in the duo lane with Terra getting that ultimate proc by the Rama. There's a lot of synergy on that team comp. And then, in my opinion, if you look at the other side, I'm seeing a lot of top picks on the other comp. The only one question mark is for me, where is the jungle? Is it the Bellona or is it the Ula? I don't know.
Yeah, that is the question. I'm not really sure either of those two fit the classic Johnny style, but the Bellona probably more so in that kind of. Yeah, I think that Ula is more likely to find a different position. I'm interested either way. I think both of them could pose some interesting questions. I do think that Bellona might work a little bit better, though.
Yeah, so far my guess would be, look, I'm 50-50. It's either Ula jungle and Bellona solo, or it's Ula solo and Bellona jungle. So we'll have to see.
We absolutely will. We don't have to do any more guesswork because we're going to throw it straight over to game number 2.
Hex Mambo, with their backs against the wall, they go to one of the most probably synonymous picks when it comes to a player and god, with Deathwalker on Bellona. One of the players who brought this god back into the forefront of the meta seasons back. Now with one game away from elimination, Mifflin, Deathwalker's going to bring this god back out into this probably good meta for her to fight up into.
Yeah, you'd think so. With some of the sustain options available to Bellona, I mean, Death Toll is still pretty good. Not a Death Toll lock-in. Instead, the Tainted Steel to deal with some of the sustain that he's not going to have to line up against, because no Death Toll for the Osiris either. Plus Bellona with what I can only assume is a Soul Eater. It's definitely curious. Deathwalker is infinitely better at the video game than I am. He hits his buttons more often and thinks harder about it, so I've just got to trust him. But, I mean, Bludgeon's desynced damage, meaning that you can cancel it pretty consistently. You're not getting a whole lot of ability lifesteal from that. Scourge has sustain built into itself on auto attacks, but now you're going to heal. It's essentially just a Jinku Bank from Sun Wukong if he maxes that one out in lane. Curious to see how that works.
Devos maybe? Question mark?
I sure hope not.
I guess we'll have to wait and see what Deathwalker does in the soul lane. We'll definitely be keeping our gazes on this item in particular. Johnny, though, on a god that he's played a couple of times in this role to varying degrees of success. I think up against the Leviathans last season when he was playing with the Valkyries. Found like one game win on this one and then another game lost immediately after with this cooler jungle going for the Bumba's Dagger start of his own. I think this entire right side of the map for Hex Mambo is going to raise some serious questions.
I am curious about how the Ul jungle combo looks in the late game. Are you proccing Bumba's hammers at Axe auto, 3 auto, 1 auto? That's pretty hard to do, and you don't have that much time on a stun, so what's the follow-up CC look like? It's not the highest. Trix Tank would displace. Not really a standard stun on the tail end from anybody else on Hex Mambo. Very curious composition top to bottom. But it does have great late game scaling and pretty consistent initiation from Trix Tank in particular, but with nobody else consistently burning beads, could be a little bit of trouble.
Trix Tank is getting bullied to roll in by Griff. Some body blocks by E-Chrome, a better stun by Gino. Trix Tank falling low, needs one more hit, and Griff will find it. First blood, less than 2 minutes in to the Wardens Hunter.
It just doesn't happen anymore like that.
No.
Feels like I haven't seen a level 2 kill in an entire Smite patch. 9-5 does not really lend itself to early aggression. And we saw just how long Trix Tank actually just lived there. Was able to walk out from like upwards of 15 auto attacks of Griff, but eventually will fall down. The Kaolin Wardens strike first and pick up first blood in the duo lane. Griff, yet again, starting his laning phase with a slight lead.
We do see Gino at least going up to the Serpent Camp will clear that one out alongside Griff. It does seem they may have been able to steal that previous one on the bottom side there. So XP lead going to the Kaolin. Wardens gold only ever so slightly, a little bit less than that first blood bounty's worth going that way. Trixtank, though, on death, does get to go back and pick up the tier 2 of his item, but Griff has got to feel good about getting that first blood. Like you said, something that we do not see very often in this patch.
No, not at all. Trixtank tries his best to steal away the purple buff and make it up to Echrome that he had lost his. Unsuccessful in doing so, but will at least allow Echrome to solo out some of that wave and get some experience back for himself. That's something you see pretty often in the dual lane. When the support dies, the ADC doesn't generally fall too far behind, as they are allowed to clear out at least a couple minions on their own, whereas despite Griff getting first blood, he still has to split wave and experience with Gino. But I'm hearing that we're going to get a look back at this. Keep your eyes on the Terra wall in particular. Seems like Gino has just got great placement.
Wow, that was a solid spot there, so Griff doesn't go flying away from there. Or maybe even into a worse position, then a roll up immediately in afterwards. And Gino just keeping that monolith down the entire time, that slow coming from the passive of this Terra really paying dividends with such low mobility early in the game.
It is, but now Hex Mambo seemed to have recovered very well. Trixtank not going to allow you to back for free. He's going to do that every single time. Don't back unless you're behind your own tower. And even then, maybe a 9-5 towers are scary enough that Trixtank won't walk through, but he is one to play with Wild Abandon, and I'm not sure that I trust the words out of my own mouth. He might just walk that back there.
Deathwalker did it.
Deathwalker,
he did Devourers.
That is certainly something.
That is an item that Deathwalker has purchased in this game of Smite.
I mean, if it's just power and lifesteal, like, how often are you really getting the value of that? It could have been like a Bloodforge. That would have made more sense to me. Bloodforge, like, at least then Bellona's getting like the passive proc, but now it's just for the stats. Devourer's Gauntlet is just for the power and just for the lifesteal. You're already getting sustained from Scourge. I suppose not having Death Toll, that's one way to sustain in the lane. Just strange. What does that say about the rest of his build? He's going to go dedicated defense after this? Maybe considering a Caduceus shield to further push that lifesteal and self-healing from Scourge later on? Deathwalker's keeping me guessing. I can only assume like his stream viewers are just Wing me right now. Just, he doesn't know.
He's not a knower. He has no idea what's going on. Deathwalker's been running this in his ranks games every day of the week. Who knows what Deathwalker does? This guy comes with the strangest picks sometimes in the solo lane, the strangest builds to go with those picks. I mean, there's a reason that this guy had pioneered an entire meta in the solo. Not sure if this is the meta that we were maybe thinking of.
We'll see. I'm results-oriented. All right, if it works, it works. And if it works, I'm going to probably do it in my games, too.
It's going to be in all my games now.
Yeah, Trixtank able to steal away the purple buff on the left-hand side, so a little bit of farm lost by Griff. And take a peek at the experience. It's actually Echrome who takes over to level 6 first. Griff just now getting it off of the wave. So slight experience advantage over to the Jing Wei. And that's, well, with Griff already having first blood for himself. Stack advantage over to Echrome as well. I mean, Echrome, it's as if Trixtank just didn't die. Gold is equalized across the board. Experience actually favoring Hex Mambo in spots. Deathwalker still has Devourer's Gauntlets. I keep looking, and it's still there. Just a curious game.
Griff is holding on to that roll and not going to use it, at least not in front of Trixtank. I did notice that even though both of the Serpent camps did, every single person. One is a Charon's coin that'll get some free stacks for 0. So, do you consider that a full stacking item like the other ones that, like Warlocks and those you definitely need to get actual like physical minion stacks? Those ones are a little bit different.
All right, Doug, hover Charon's coin for me.
It says
and
the word.
If it says the word stack,
then it's a stacking item.
Yep.
You gain a stack.
Yep,
so
that's a stacking item.
Okay.
Yep, that's just how it works.
Okay. Well, not everybody in the game is stacking though. Opposite side, at least for now, Relentless and Sino going in towards the Katana trees instead.
That's just 8/10 of the game are stacked right now.
That's the quick math. Going right back, a good pluck. Well, maybe a better wall, at least by Gino, will prevent that pluck from sending him flying around.
Yeah, this time, both Hex Mambo and the Kaolin Wardens playing a very slow pace the early, which is something I think we can become very accustomed to. Around that 15-minute mark is where sparks might start flying, and then 15 to 20 to 25 minutes is where the fire is ignited. So I'm waiting on which team is going to have the first objective strike, and I'd have to assume it's the Kaolin Wardens. Their composition just so strong at burning these objectives and controlling space, especially with a lightning storm from Zeus.
Sino rotating over. It's a 3-man rotation to the duo lane. Ultimate popped by Gino, and an airstrike out of Ecrom will get him to safety, but Trixtank will not be safe. He'll be thrown right back to the Wolves, and it's Grip with another kill for the Wardens. Meanwhile, right side, Deathwalker uses his ultimate, but does not find the kill on Relentless One.
Yeah, not quite. Relentless One, though, is worse for wear and does not have teleport. If he wants to farm out this next wave, he's going to have to go back to base first. Deathwalker should be able to push that in and deny some experience and gold. Devourer's Gauntlet's apparently paying for itself. All that sustain means that anytime Relentless One takes a fight, he's just losing the fight. HP Chalice is equalized. Deathwalker and Relentless One both have it, but no death toll for Osiris means that there's really no way he's lining up against Deathwalker. And even had he built Relentless One, that is, death toll, there's a tainted steal from Deathwalker. I mean, did he checkmate him? Are we checkmated?
This early in the game, he's already calling checkmate at this point. I mean, that's a very early call on the side of Deathwalker. And going more towards these junglers specifically, Johnny, despite being basically completely inactive as far as fights across the map are concerned, he's been able to get that farm game up. Sino, though, charging up that ult, maybe looking for a line on this right side. Will not find anything. Deathwalker is well back into his own jungle at this point. Sino will not find that line in. He'll have to just go back to farm.
But I like that call. I mean, Relentless One's been getting accosted in the lane. Deathwalker has generally been playing the role of bully, so Sino says it's pretty likely this Bologna's going to walk up. Simply not the case this time around. Griff loses out on his beads as Trixtank connects a pluck on the tower line, so line of safety lost to the ROM of Kaolin Wardens. But still just a pretty safe pick. Has CC immunity to the ultimate, can remove himself from the playfield for a couple of moments and allow the rest of the team to rotate their way back in. That's not to say that Trixtank can't rotate through, pluck again, and potentially set up for a kill. Keep your eyes on him. This Sobek seems like he smells blood.
And even despite 2 kills going the way of Griff within these first 8-9 minutes of play, we don't really see an exaggerated lead in that dual lane. He's sitting dead even in XP with Ecrom. He's sitting dead even pretty much in build at the same time there, both of them on that tier 2 Shuriken. We haven't really seen anything come from these ganks just yet out of the Kaolin Wardens. Hex Mambo are able to hold an even pace here this early game.
Red buff invade attempted and successful, I believe, by the Kaolin Wardens. And all right, how would I know? Johnny stepped over it, but he's got a speed buff, so I'm just going to go ahead and call it. Yeah, that worked.
No, it did not. It was Zero Suit who does walk over to pick it up. It's okay, Mifflin. Griff is in danger, though, as 3 of Hex Mambo surround him. Third snipe. We'll get a lot of damage on Ecrom. Griff goes right back in to try and fight it away, and he'll be able to turn this fight back around now. It's a 3v2 on the left side. Pluck from Trixtank will make it only 2. Allows Johnny to find a way out. Sino finds the pull on Trixtank, but that is the end of the fight for the Wardens, especially with the damage output that Johnny and now Moswell have. As Moswell rotates over, will not find any more fight.
Yeah, not much left to fight over, but Trixtank seems to disagree. If you can connect the pluck onto Sino, would at least be able to burn those beads. Not the case. Doesn't love his odds in the 1 versus 3. But maybe in the 2v2, a little bit better.
Johnny gets a little bit of poke against Gino there. Gino will eat the Axe Toss right after, but will still be rather healthy on this Terra. Full Gauntlet of Thieves up for both of these supports, as they've got a lot of protections and a lot of HP to their name.
I'm taking another check-in with the builds, Deathwalker and Relentless One. After Relentless One gets Bumba's Hammer, then he'll be able to match sustain with Deathwalker, which is nice, but Bumba's Hammer comes at level 20, so it's going to be a good while. Slight aggression from Gino around the red buff, and you got to think it's not for much reason, but maybe just creating space for this Gold Fury pulled out.
There's coverage. Next Mambo goes in, Trixtank to the backline, finds 3, will charge right on out. Sino loading up the ultimate, goes right back in, finds Trixtank with the Sonic Boom, and Trixtank will still be healthy. Relentless One to chase out, but not fire off that ultimate. Kaolin Wardens, they bait forward Hex Mambo, but they don't get much out of it.
Perhaps the most major win for the Kaolin Wardens is that they somehow forced Deathwalker out of his lane before he takes over to level 20. My man was in mid. I saw him.
He left the lane?
Yeah, he left.
He got out of the jungle of that side of the map.
Yeah, he was all the way in mid.
Wild.
He took Zero as his wave. All right, that's massive. That means Deathwalker's feeling threatened. He's only doing that if he's bringing out all the stops.
With 2 items deep and still going, I think it is important that we do keep our eyes set on where Deathwalker is going. Okay, yeah, he'll go back to lane as if nothing ever happened. He just got a bonus wave along the way. Got a Scorpion there, but as these players start going back to base, the Transcendence is finished up in a Jotun's Wrath out of Johnny. A little bit of extra cooldown for this jungle Uller that we haven't really seen a whole lot of just yet.
No, Ul is a scaler So it's going to be a little while. Now that he's got so much CDR, Jotuns, and Transcendence, could potentially start looking for a couple more ganks. But it's the issue with Ull in lane that is also going to rear its head in the jungle. The burst potential of, I'm just going to 100-0 you. If I land my axe, you die, doesn't exist anymore. Unless somebody is severely poked before Johnny gets there, he's not going to be the most effective ganker. It's not AoE, CC. It's not the highest damage output that you could ask for. I feel like Ull fits a very similar role in the jungle as something like a Set. But Set at least is capable of all-in engagements. He'll stick to you. He's got great survivability, great burst potential. Ull, I feel like, mitigated in that effectiveness.
I mean, you can see just what an axe toss and a potion from Zeros does to Gino. Not a whole lot, and most of that damage came from Zeros, not even from what Johnny threw out. Still even in XP between these two hunters, despite the fact that now Griff has 3 kills to his name, and one of those was up over against Echrome. So far, the European hunter from Hex Mambo has been able to keep up that XP differential despite the fact that his opposition is getting so many kills.
Deathwalker nearly solos the Pyromancer. Had nobody shown up, he would have just taken it. There, now. I know what he's doing, and it's exactly that. Tons of sustain and tons of damage as the Kaolin Wardens drop the Zeus ultimate. That should spell the end of this engagement. Not if Relentless One's got anything to say about it. Blink forward, maybe a reset to the Pyro. You can force Hex Mambo to step back up.
Yeah, blink for blink. Pyro pulled with 4 of the Wardens around and 4 of Mambo. Now with Griff leaving his lane, it'll make it a 5 versus 4 for the Kaolin Wardens. This gives Echrome a little bit of time on this left side of the map to farm back up. But Pyro down to a quarter HP and secured by the Kaolin Wardens. A little close, though, by Hex Mambo to try and grab that.
I mean, Detonate does more damage than Scourge, but that was incredibly close. Thin margin separates that objective from the Kaolin Wardens and Hex Mambo. But even in taking the objective, being 3-0, getting first blood, as by nature of being 3-0, but still behind in gold. Hex Mambo are simply farming better. Greater Scorpions going their way, collecting chalices very well. The majority of neutral farm has been going to the Order side as well. It's been a lot of rotations from the Kaolin Wardens. Relentless One already joining the left side of the map at times. Mazwal rotating over towards the duo and the soul lane in turn. Whereas Hex Mambo have shown and continually shown in these sets that for the most part, barring one stray walk away from Deathwalker, they're sticking to their lanes and they're farming up until they get to a point where they're confident in their 5v5.
Gold Fury has the vision for the Kaolin Wardens. Hex Mambo, at least their hunter, walks over just to check and make sure that nobody's doing anything, and there is nothing going on in that left side jungle. I want to take a peek into Mazwal's build here. Going with the Warlock Staff, that's normal. The last game he did this, and now running it again. How do you kind of feel about this Chronos Pendant in the second slot for Mazwal?
I'm a huge proponent of Chronos Pendant. I think as far as feels-based gameplay goes, Chronos Pendant might be the best feeling item in the game. CDR, an incredibly fun stat to play with, plus the passive, essentially overcapping your CDR once you get to that 40% mark is very powerful, but what you do in picking up Chronos Pendant so early is sacrificing every individual ability. You might be able to fire off 4 Chain Lightnings in a team fight rather than 2, but if you're only landing 1 or if you're only landing 2, as opposed to landing the 2 with a standard damage item, you're doing overall less. So Chronos Pendant enforces this idea of you need to be on point. Well, you're either casting your abilities constantly and constantly applying that damage, or you're dealing less damage and hitting less. So Mazwal needs to land every single ability for Chronos Pendant to pay for itself.
Deathwalker still, aside from this Devourer's Gauntlet, going with the most traditional of the solo lane auto attack builds that we saw back in 9.3, 9.4, where you go with this Berserker's Shogun's rush after, but instead of the Death Soul for the sustain, he's just been utilizing this Devourer's Gauntlets. I guess maybe there's just some extra bit of value that he finds in this Tainted Steel over going for that Death Toll.
I mean, they're a great upgrade pass for Tainted Steel that will really put the hurt onto gods like Terra. Not Gino, going to have a much harder time using that Earthen Fury as a sustain tool once Deathwalker gets involved in these team fights. But I'm not certain that's Deathwalker's job.
Walker in danger, does have that Eagles Rally trying to find into 2, has to jump in place, but as soon as he lands down, Sino puts him down. And a 4th kill up for the Kaolin Wardens, finally shutting down Deathwalker.
I was expecting to see a lot more rotations from Sino to that lane, like punish the Devourer's Gauntlets. 17 minutes in, it finally does happen, but not for free. Sino forced to use the beads there at risk of losing his life to that high damage output Bologna build. Speaking of high damage output, Lightblade picked up. Potentially a kin size, maybe an Executioner if he's wild, Aussie. And he is wild because I'm looking at a Devourer's Gauntlet. I'm excited to see what this Bologna can do in the late game.
We will upgrade it to the tier 2, so we will have to wait and see what that one eventually gets loaded up into. When we've seen the Osiris jungles popping their way, it's more often been that Executioner, a jump over the wall from Relentless. To dive onto Johnny, it's a 4 versus 1 in the tower. Johnny should go down here. It's just a matter of who gets the credit for the kill. But there won't be a further chase from the Wardens. They'll just scare Johnny away. But what do they get beyond here? Fire Giant's up. It seems the Wardens have set their sights on it.
Zero's nearby, spots out the pool. Gino dropped low, and Trickstick is here as well.
Relentless is also low. He can't stick around with the fight. Zero's throws out those firebolts, and Gino's health is melting away. He needs a little bit more after jumping out of the house, and it'll be Deathwalker to deal the final blow. Hex Mambo have finally put a kill for themselves.
They might be able to go to the Fire Giant. Relentless one has to go back to base. It's only 3 strong from the Kaolin Warden. Sino has ult. He's got a vision line here.
Walker's got Eagle's Rally, but Sonic Boom in the back line finds 2. But that's not going to stop the Fire Giant. Half HP by Hex Mambo. And Sino walking around the backside of the pit, trying to box against Johnny Nechrome. Might not be the best answer. Deathwalker will leave the Fire Giant pit to chase out Sino instead. Johnny right behind and needs a little bit more damage to secure the kill.
Man, Sino does so much for his team there. Forces the reset. Now Hex Mambo are off balance. The Kaolin Warden surging forward. 3 members of Hex Mambo, 2 low HP to continue fighting. But Good Eyes Doug, Trebuchets all the way across the map are putting in work. There was a tier 1 mid tower once upon a time. No longer. Trebuchet takes that one out. Same could be said of the duo lane. Hex Mambo and just forcing the Kaolin Wardens to rotate over to the right-hand side have found major value on the map. I've been seeing the memes on Reddit. I've been reading Twitch chat. I know you guys are making fun of us casters, saying that the Trebuchets aren't all that important. Well, clearly they are. 2 structures removed off of 1 macro play.
It's a free 1,000 gold for Hex Mambo just off of that. Sure, they don't grab the Fire Giant through all that fight, but they buy so much time. With the Gold Fury up here, Kaolin Wardens with vision again may just be enough to deter Hex Mambo from pushing towards that objective. But it has forced the Wardens to answer back to his Trebuchet. And Myth, I'm not sure they needed all 3 to get that.
Yeah, curious. Had Hex Mambo been a little bit closer to the Fire Giant, you got to think they would have immediately gone over and pulled it out. Kaolin Wardens showing presence of 3 on left. Will still be able to pull out the Gold Fury.
Heroes won't be able to stop the Gold Fury, but maybe a little bit of damage in return. Unfortunate for him, that ult takes a little while before he can fire right after. So the Kaolin Wardens, they lose the fight on the right-hand side. They lose a couple of towers, but at the very least, they get a very valuable Gold Fury here 20 minutes in.
Like 66% of the neutral objectives that have gone down this game have all gone to the Kaolin Wardens, but it's still Hex Mambo in the lead in every single sense of the word. Gold and experience both favoring the Order side, and he knows Deathwalker has so much sustain, he can just do Pyromancer indefinitely. Doesn't need any help, just needs the time to do so. Does not have it, as Kaolin Wardens have shown presence, decided to pull it themselves.
Just Sino, though, on it by himself, and that's leaving Moswell by himself? Was there just no communication from the Wardens there? Moswell left all by his lonesome. Relentless one now has to run. He's got his ultimate available, will use it to leap away from Trickstank, but Relentless is slowed down. And with that small misstep by the Kaolin Wardens, that opens up the Fire Giant for Hex Mambo. Sino, though, looping around the backside from the wave, charging up that Sonic Boom. Gino in the midst of the pit. And Johnny goes to the back line and tries something. Fire Giant on a 50-50. And the Kaolin Wardens are going to steal it away. Eagles rally, though, by Deathwalker. Stops 3. And that's enough to take down Sino. Gino should not make it out of here as a good stun by Johnny in the follow-up. Put Hex Mambo back up with 3 down and only 2 left of the Wardens with the buff.
Sino has done everything for his team. Every single time Hex Mambo has pulled fire, just twice now, 22 minutes into the game, Sino is the only thing separating the Kaolin Wardens from a just disasterful game state. The first time around, it's just by stopping the Hex Mambo from finishing off the fire by rotating in with that ultimate and using Aegis to distract them. Second time, my man just walks up and Superman punches the Fire Giant and takes it with 96 damage. That was not a lucky play. He did not crit. That was just a tiny auto from one small Mercury to keep the dream alive for the North American representatives. Hex Mambo have got to be kicking themselves for that.
The Kaolin Wardens do keep 2 of their players with the Fire Giant buff, maybe the most important one of those being Griff, but Hex Mambo still, even losing that objective, maintain a small lead here, about 3,000 gold up at 23 minutes in the game. It's weird for me at this point with how many games have been so even at this point to even say 3,000 gold at this point in the game. But Hex Mambo still in the driver's seat. Those 2 Fire Giant buffs, not a full team at the least.
Yeah, I like to equate Fire Giant to about 10,000 gold. That's 2,000 per member. There's only 2 members with it. That's 4,000 gold.
That's quick math.
Over to the Kaolin Wardens, which would put them 1,000 gold in the lead. So Hex Mambo,
quicker math.
I suppose, should be concerned. Plenty of towers for the Kaolin Wardens to work their way through, and considering the 2 targets who have got Fire Giant, Relentless One likely the tankiest member of the Wardens, should be able to sustain it up for his team, and, well, Griff can knock them down.
4-man grouping left. Relentless One stuck in the middle of the other 4 of Hex Mambo. The knockup is good. Needs that Lord of the Afterlife to find a way out, and he will do so. Tier 1 tower does go down to the Kaolin Wardens, and Hex Mambo are still going in. Trix Tank blinks forward. Johnny jumps over the wall. The Kaolin Wardens are still on the run.
Relentless One has been left alone. Gino forced to step back forward.
The lightning is calmed down. Immediately, Echrome will use his ult to get out because Griff has
Look
found the
behind
damage
him.
onto Johnny, who needs one more shot onto Echrome. It's a double for the Hunter of the Kaolin Warden. Sino is batting away at Trix Tank's HP, but Deathwalker is full health in the middle of 2. He is destroying Griff and Gino in the midst of this boxing match, while Zeros is keeping the other 2 busy.
Busy only for a moment before he goes into the grayscale. Relentless One, credit for this kill. Deathwalker was winning the 1v1 against Griff, but it is a 1v1 no longer. Mazwal lines up, and Relentless One knocks him down. The Kaolin Wardens bait Hex Mambo into a poor fight. It's really just Relentless One doing so, dropped down to 10% before the engagement even started. But if you are wondering whether or not Bumba's Hammer has got value, Relentless One did not go back to base. That is just the healing from his items and the Fire Giant that resustain him. And the Kaolin Wardens somehow, even while being pinstered by Hex Mambo, come out alive scot-free. Not a single death, whereas Hex Mambo have got 4 in the grayscale. 1 respawn, Johnny's back, but it was 4, I promise.
Now, credit where credit's due, at least for Deathwalker here. This weird build path that he is still continuing to go, by the way. Kin Size was the item that he had finished up earlier on, and does have the Tainted Breastplate to his name. He was taking down 2. He almost 2v1 Griff with his support right next to him. It wasn't until Mazwal joined that fight that Deathwalker then was getting a little bit worrisome, and then obviously Relentless One to seal that out. But that now opens up the Kaolin Wardens to grab the Primal Fury. And finally, for the first time this game, the Kaolin Wardens have an actual lead across the board.
Yeah, an actual one.
An actual one, like a physical, you can see their numbers are higher.
Yeah, they had a transitory 1,000 gold lead with
Correct.
2 Fire Giants, and now it's a literal 1,000 gold lead, having used the Fire Giant to create that on the map. But when you think about what they did with Fire Giant on 2, it was Gold Fury, a team fight, and a tier 1 tower. Hex Mambo, even in losing that fight, they're not behind. It's even. Like, it's an even game. As we approach this next Fire Giant, neither team can feel confident in their abilities, but great information was gained. Bologna always beats ADC. That's regardless of build. You've got block stacks in the first ability stance, and you've got a disarm when you use Scourge. He does a lot of damage as well, now with this Kin-Size Berserker Shield, Devourer's Gauntlets style of build. But what did I see? Chain Lightning from Mazwal with a 2-tick detonate did upwards of 40% of Deathwalker's HP bar. That does not bode well. So the Kaolin Wardens, if they want to, could just have Mazwal and Griff stack up on top of each other, and then Deathwalker is mitigated. He's not a frontliner. He doesn't have that tank stat line. It's all about sustain. He's a sustain tank. That doesn't work if you're just getting slammed by magic damage. And I'm pretty certain he no longer wins the 1v1 up against Relentless One.
Last game we saw around a 7 or 8 minute Fire Giant dance between these 2 teams. Fire Giant is back up. Pyromancer goes down to Hex Mambo. And we return to this stalemate around the major neutral objective on this right side of the map. Kaolin Wardens were able to steal away the last Fire Giant. Hex Mambo cannot be happy about that as they try and establish their presence across this area.
Johnny lines up against Gino on the left-hand side. Gino is a support, but now he's got support. Sino with the ultimate, no good, but still able to force out the beads from Uhl.
He's away from him. Sino gets caught in place and ends up taking a lot of damage from Echrome. Lightning Storm drops through on top of Trixtank and Zeros, who will not make it out. Echrome's got to use the ult to find a way out, but how far can this Jingwei go? The answer is not very. This tower is not going to help him out. He's going to need some backup from Trixtank and Johnny to keep Relentless One off. Meanwhile, Deathwalker walking back to the remainder of the team while Relentless One is just fighting everybody that squares up to him. Tier 1 tower. Who cares about that? Let's send the rest of Hex Mambo home.
Man, Relentless One has been playing like this all week so far. He wants all the smoke. Anybody who lines up, he is going to square up with them and has done masterfully at creating space for his team. Zeros gets slammed by Moswall. That's all that happens to him, and that's all that separates these squads as Fire Giants drop low.
Deathwalker tries to sail away. He doesn't get the Fire Giant, but he does get Sino. Now Gino and Relentless One low as Echrome has rejoined the fight, but Deathwalker is getting melted by the carries. Griff and Moswall take him down. Echrome batted away by Relentless One. That is now 2-3 down for the side of Hex Mambo. Johnny, the last one on this side of the map to try and help and try and find a way out, but he has no mana to get out. It's Griff with the double and the Kaolin Wardens with a near deicide.
7-0-3 for the ADC of the Kaolin Wardens. We've been having a massive conversation of the inverse, 3-0-7. Relentless One, not a misnomer, by the way. This guy simply has not let go of his W key. Hex Mambo, dead for 30 seconds. Fire Giant on 4. ADC still alive, and Tier 2 tower shredded. Maybe the Kaolin Wardens can look towards this Phoenix. If they can desync the death onto Zeros, could even potentially look for more.
Zeros does throw out his potion and his magic right after, so that's all the DPS that Zeros has for this Phoenix defense. He will just let this bird go.
End. No way.
And the first one falls away. Kaolin Wardens will not try the greedy attempt to end this game out. Still a couple of towers up, and that means that Titan is very healthy.
It is. 2 Tier 2 towers still remain standing for Hex Mambo, but the Kaolin Wardens have shown time and time again that this composition is just so hard to deal with. It's multiple threats on the map. If Hex Mambo dedicate time to dealing with Sino, Moswall slamming him. If you're worried about Griff, Moswall slamming him. If Relentless One's in your backline, Moswall slamming him, all right? This Zeus is an issue. This Rom is an issue. Hex Mambo don't have the individual matchups to deal with every single one. Deathwalker very well could be the most valuable member of Hex Mambo as of now, and the only weakness of Deathwalker is that there's only one of him. He can stop the auto attacks from Sino, he can stop him from Griff, he can stop him from Relentless One, but he can't stop all three. The Kaolin Wardens are doing a very good job of trading aggro in these team fights. In the first engagement on the left-hand side of the map, it was Relentless One who is poked out, disengages, baits Hex Mambo forward. In the fight around the Fire Giant that we just saw, it's Sino who is poked out, walks away, baits Hex Mambo forward. Every single time Hex Mambo has lost out in an engagement, it's been their own making. Hex Mambo are choosing to chase out these fights, and the Kaolin Wardens have slapped them down stiff arm every single time.
And with this time given to the Kaolin Wardens, two of their carries go back to finish up their build. Sino with a full Envenom Deathbringer. Griff picks up an entire kin size to round out their builds. An Ethereal Staff out of Moswall as well. The Kaolin Wardens haven't grouped up towards this left side just yet. Instead, Hex Mambo will push out the minion wave in left and allow their Trebuchet plus Oni minions start to push down this mid.
So now the Kaolin Wardens want to control the positioning of Hex Mambo. If they show 5-man presence on the left side of the map, the Kaolin Wardens will force Hex Mambo in a position where they have to defend probably the Phoenix. Tier 2 tower, not super valuable as of right now, but if Hex Mambo don't group up to defend, the Kaolin Wardens will just go for the Phoenix. So this is a hard decision for Echrome, who has his back stopped by Trebuchet, on whether or not he wants to deal with that Trebuchet or if he wants to be there for the bird. He's going to go for the bird, which means the Wardens just need to make this team fight go as long as possible.
Sino charging that ultimate, but will not fire it off just yet. Hex Mambo 5 strong now around this left side. Deathwalker in the jungle, waiting for a path to find a way in as that Trebuchet continues to push up the mid, and the Oni minions pushing through the right side of the map. Somebody from Hex Mambo is going to have to turn back to stop it, but Gino's not going to let that happen. Zeros calls the house down right away, but his health bar is already dwindling. Sino into the backline with the Sonic Boom, but he is met by the crits of Echrome. Sino may have stepped too far forward. Sino will go down to the 2 hunters on the side of Hex Mambo. Johnny will just keep him out while the rest of the Kaolin Wardens are pushed back by Hex Mambo.
That Titan's taking a lot of damage, so Johnny will have to stick around and defend it. You'd think with all that time bought by Sino, there would have been a little bit more damage on that left side Phoenix, but Hex Mambo stays strong. Zeros and Trixtank keep a cool head and are able to keep their base alive this time around. The Kaolin Wardens forced to reset. 30 seconds left on the Fire Giant respawn, and only 1 Phoenix down for Hex Mambo, the easiest Phoenix to defend. It's not the best game state for the Order side, but they are certainly still in this match. Had Sino connected his ultimate, we might be at the death segment already. That is how integral he was to that team fight, but unfortunately, whiffs wide to the right, and Hex Mambo are able to put a defense up afterward. Whether or not Hex Mambo are willing to defend around this Fire Giant has been answered by their positioning. Trixtank stepping forward with his team hot on his heels. If the Kaolin Wardens thought this was going to be an easy objective, they'd better think twice.
Mambo does get the Phoenix back. Trixtank immediately at the front line with the rest of his squad grouped up ahead of time. Moswall and Sino still very far back from this fight. But Trixtank is not willing to initiate just yet. Maybe after a couple of potion tosses that come out by Zeros, that damage is slamming through the front line of the Wardens.
So Zeros, when Relentless One isn't on him, is able to deal damage. Relentless One takes notice and steps forward. Fire Giant down to 50%.
Relentless and Gino stepping up. Griffin Moswall here. Keep your eyes, though, on Sino on the left-hand side. Relentless goes in to find 2 with the ultimate. Echrome barely able to make it out. Will he be able to find his way all the way out?
He's got him.
Relentless One finds the shot, and still batting away against 3. Trixtank will not be able to close it out. Zeros will go down to Sino, and that's already 3 down for Hex Mambo. Sino Sonic Booms off to the side. Will find Johnny, but Johnny's going to turn that one back around. Instead, Sino going to bat away at the remainder of their health bar. Trixtank and Johnny on the run as far as they can go. But Johnny able to keep it alive. Relentless One right into the back line. But I don't think he's going to be able to find both of them. He'll at least grab one, maybe find the second one. Johnny's slowed down, but look at that health he just got back.
He uses the Bumbas to proc off the camp, gets the MP5, gets the leap over the wall. Relentless One, it was just assuming he was but Relentless One does not need to kill him. Look at the rest of the Kaolin Wardens. They're already on the base.
And with the minions there, they should be able to walk right on in. Fire minions to the right side. Who cares? Kaolin Wardens in 35 minutes will shut down Hex Mambo, send them both packing right back to EU, and that will be the Kaolin Wardens moving on to our 4th day of play.
It only took the Kaolin Wardens 80 combined minutes of in-game time to shut down Hex Mambo in a best-of-3 set that only goes 2. You might have been deceived by the actual timer, but it was a convincing victory nonetheless. There were moments where it felt like Hex Mambo were 1 auto attack away from winning a team fight, 1 pick away from separating an engagement, 1 piece of CC just to set something up. And it just wasn't quite there. The baits, the forward, every single engagement all went the way of the Wardens, as does the set.
And Hex Mambo were able to hold on at least a golden XP lead for most of that game, but even despite that, the Kaolin Wardens fight back. They hold on and they take a 2-0 set to send Hex Mambo home to move on to day number 4, and they will join their North American brethren to fight off against the Valkyries and the Scarabs in our 4th day of Masters. Mifflin, it's going to be an exciting one. I can't wait to see what happens tomorrow. But before we do that, we're going to throw it to the desk to close us out.
Thank you, JMac and Mifflin Rowe. What a treat.
What an ending.
What an ending, absolutely. The Wardens, like, at the end there, those last couple minutes, wiped the floor in that team fight.
Relentless One especially. Like,
For
we
sure.
talked to him about, after the first game with the Boombas Hammer Osiris really taking the meta to that next level, he's able to do it again. Deathwalker replies with a very unconventional build and has some pressure in the early game, is able to pull some objectives, but none of them go their way. And even Sino stealing away an objective at some point in that game and setting up Wardens for their victory today.
And it was just a one-punch man kind of moment. Sino goes in. I think Sino takes 2 of those Fire Giants and dies at both of them.
That's right, yeah.
I believe this is just after that first steal on Fire Giant there. Deathwalker. Oh wait, no, this is later on in the game. Moswell able to pick that one up. But the Kaolin Wardens, in fairness, Hex Mambo did not make this game easy for them, right? Still takes them 35 minutes to close this one out, but the converse, the flip side, the upshot of this whole situation is that they didn't let Mambo get to that post 40-minute situation that they are so comfortable in.
Yeah, look, watch Relentless in these clips. All of these clips, he's just staying in there the whole entire time, just holding the W key. He stays low health. He doesn't matter. His offense is his defense. Every time he uses an ability and he gets an auto attack off next, he is healing and then reducing his cooldown and repeat. He sticks around in this team fight forever. 150 health, below 100 at some point there. He follows up all the way to his own back camps on the other side of the map, chases Johnny. I think he takes an axe here, or it's Sino. He almost takes an arrow from Johnny here, and then eventually cleans Trixtank up first. A little fumble on this kill after, a little fumble on this back camp after that, but he does clean Johnny up in the end, and his team goes on to push through to the Titan.
5-0-0 on the solo lane of their Relentless. I mean, as you said, just such a cornerstone for this team,
Absolutely.
but also looking at the other side lane row, 8-0-5 for Griff. Griff has had some astonishing games today. We saw him go unstoppable earlier on the Heimdall.
Yep.
Now running that exact same thing back with the Rama. Only 19,000 damage here, though, so you can really tell when Griff was doing damage, it was hella impactful.
That's right, and those kills sometimes come from those snipes from the back line. When someone's making so much space, like what Relentless one was doing for him, he kind of gets free reign to do anything that he wants, and he's raining down arrows on their heads, and he's able to secure those kills. Relentless does not need those kills. He's just in there doing his job, so he can move on to the next day.
Speaking of the next day, here has been your bracket for this day. It will be the Eldritch Hounds and the Kaolin Warriors moving up to face the Solar Scarabs and the Valhalla Valkyries tomorrow for our first SPL teams to be introduced into this same bracket style, and it will be this similar bracket style going into tomorrow. Too bad for Hex Mambo and the Niflheim Wargs, though. They are going to be going home.
Yeah, too bad for Europe, I suppose. We've
Yeah,
got the two
I
NA
guess
teams
so.
going ahead and going up against, I guess, more NA teams in the SPL tomorrow. So a new challenge for them, but at least they can rest their heads tonight, sitting comfy. They have made it, I guess, to the top of the SEC. This is, their finals for them, and now they get to take it to the big leagues.
Absolutely. And here's the bracket for tomorrow. It's going to be the Eldritch Hounds going up against the Valhalla Valkyries. That is your first seed coming out of this tournament versus the bottom seed coming out of the SPL in the Valhalla Valkyries. And then, of course, the second seed from today, the Kaolin Wardens, going up against that 7th place team in the Solar Scarabs. Will be the first best of ones there to get us started, and it will still be the double elim. So still plenty of chances for these two teams to prove to us that they are as good, if not better, than some of these SPL teams.
Yeah, small disadvantage for them because these SPL teams have been watching them throughout the weekend while they've been scrimming as well. So they've been practicing and preparing for these teams over the weekend. Now they get to match up with them on Sunday. They know exactly what they're going to expect. And these SEC teams, one, have to overcome that disadvantage of having that strategy already revealed to their opponent teams, and then take it up to these high-level teams who, to be fair, they've been watching throughout the year as well.
And if they are somehow able to take down, one of these guys, it could open up a whole world of possibilities. I think there's definitely some game one potential at the very least.
Especially in a best of one.
I think so. I think in that first round we could definitely see some updates. But ladies and gents, that is going to be it from us today at SMITE Masters. Come back tomorrow to see, well, the introduction of the SPL teams, and some sparks will hopefully be flying. But for now, that's going to be it from myself and Ro. Have a good night, everyone.